So mics are hot. Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Emmitsburg Town Meeting. In respect for decorum to the meeting, we'll ask that you silence your phones at this time, or better still, turn them off. That would be appreciated. This is the Monday, April 4th, 2022 Town Meeting. At this time, I will ask everyone to please rise as we make our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Future meetings include the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting, which will occur on Tuesday, April 19th, 2022, here at the town office at 7:30 p.m. The next town council meeting is scheduled at this time for Monday, May 2nd, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. in the town office. Are there any other meetings at this time to share?
Yes, I just noticed we will have a special town meeting on May 16th, budget only at 7:30.
Terrific. Okay, thank you. All right, moving forward. My hope is everyone's had the opportunity to review the minutes from the March 7th and the March 16th meetings. Remember, we had two last month. Does anybody have any modifications related to those meetings or things they want to see changed? None. Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented for March 7th and March 16th? So moved. Thank you. Motion was made by Commissioner Davis. Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion's been made by Commissioner Davis, seconded by Commissioner Ritz. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries 5-0 with all commissioners present. At this time, we now turn to deputies for the deputies report.
How's everybody doing? Awesome. Once again, I'm Sergeant Linehan with the Community Deputy Unit. Want to touch on a couple things before we get into the deputies report. And this is going to back us up probably into March. As most of you are aware, we lost one of our own last month due to some medical complications resulting out of COVID. Deputy First Class Ken Olander unfortunately passed away at the beginning of March. And so we've been dealing with that. We did have a temporary fill-in in Myersville at the time while he was out on medical leave, which was Deputy Cole Barthlow, who had interviewed for the vacancy in Emmitsburg back in December. Wasn't selected at the time, but we kept him around looking for an opportunity for him. That's not a negative on you, by the way. We actually like you. Right. And unfortunately, with Ken's passing, we had to make some changes. We did move Paul Graves down to Myersville to take up that position. A little bit about that situation. Kenny Olander had been mentoring Paul through most of last year because Paul was interested in a more of a community-oriented policing approach and wanted to get involved in the unit. And he had built some ties in there in Myersville that we felt were very important to continue there. So we made the switch, sent Paul down to Myersville, and invited Cole to become part of our team here in Emmitsburg to serve you guys. A little bit about Cole. He's a 4-year veteran of the Sheriff's Office. He spent his entire career in the Patrol Operations Division, but again, has an interest in community policing. He's born and raised in Pennsylvania, doesn't live too far from here across the state line, loves Emmitsburg, loves the northern part of the county, loves the community already. He's been here for about 3 weeks and he's been doing a really good job, and I'm happy to introduce him to you tonight.
Very good. Thank you.
Cole's recently engaged, so he hopefully will be starting a family in the near future, and that's always entertaining and interesting, right? That's right. Deputy A-Hall, go on up here.
Good evening. How are you guys?
How are you?
Good. I'll go over the monthly report. We had 4 annual, 1 sick. We had in-service training, police 1 training. Both of us had that. Productivity for the month, 382 calls for service handled, 7 arrests, 134 directed patrols, 174 traffic stops, and 23 wing cards completed. That's what's important now. So things that we feel that we need to concentrate and fix in the town that are like reoccurring events and problems in problem areas. We have an open assault case pending and 2 open drug investigations. Cannot comment on either of them. And that's the town report. Any questions?
I need to know if you can come to the citizen advisory meeting on the 19th, on a Tuesday. Are you on duty that night?
I will check, but I'll make it a point to be there.
Okay. They have some
I'm-
questions they want to bring up.
Sure, no problem. The 19th, I'll make sure I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Either one, don't matter. I mean, if you're not one, we'll take the.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, Deputy, 2 quick things. The accident that occurred on Irish Town Road, I think Sunday a week ago, the car flipped. Any word on the status of the individual who was injured in that event?
We can't discuss the
Okay.
status of the individual, but we can assure the town that it was not the fault as far as the construction or anything like that.
Second item, I had a request and it's curious. I know you patrol the east part of Main Street. There were 2 households that shared concerns about speeding and loud vehicles. And I know you guys, I don't know if you can do the Jake break. I think that might be Maryland State Police. But the other side of it is, I asked them if they could be specific about time of day and any specific vehicles. And what they did share, no specific vehicles, but sort of surprising. They talked about 6 o'clock in the morning through late evening, but I was sort of surprised at the early hours. So the request is if enforcement could occur at those early hours. Now, I know you guys are there a lot, and I know you're there enforcing it. That was conveyed to the resident. They felt that the issue hasn't been addressed by town government seriously. And I think, and I hope you feel supported in your efforts there from the commission and the mayor. But I really wanted to convey to that individual who was very polite that, I don't speak for the board typically, but on that occasion I would, that it's our priority that everybody in town is safe and well looked after.
Right.
And speed enforcement is part of that. I didn't discuss that, the frequency of officers there enforcing the speed limit, but if you could be mindful that there was a concern expressed and that the time of day was something that caught my attention.
Okay.
So if something could be considered for that, that would be appreciated.
Okay.
And that's the message.
So with that, we are stopping probably more cars than, and this is no knock to our patrol teams. I mean, I stop in 100 cars a month.
Right.
That's with days off and everything. So that's ever an average of 10 a day. And he's close to 100. And he hasn't been here the whole time. So, there's only 2 of us. We have calls for service and other things that we have to take care of. So, I mean, I want to reassure the town that we're doing an absolute best job we can with traffic enforcement. As far as the Jake break thing goes, that would be an ordinance for the town that we could enforce if there was an ordinance in the town to establish that. I think it's a wonderful idea. The trucks do drive fast through town. I've called all the companies for the main trucks and spoke with them directly, and I felt they were receptive. However, there's sometimes where tickets are more receptive than just a phone call. So we go that route when we have to, but we understand, and it is loud. I sit on Main Street quite often, and the Jake breaks are loud, but that's a town ordinance issue, and we would be happy to enforce it if there was an issue with that.
Okay.
But please let the citizens know we're only 2 people, and we only have 10 hours to cover the town, do investigations, and do traffic stops.
And it's appreciated.
Yes,
I just
sir.
want to make sure you
Yep.
know that too. So for clarity's sake. Okay. Any other questions or comments for the sheriffs at this time? No. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Welcome. Appreciate you being here.
You too. Thank you.
Congratulations. Yeah, hardware. Okay. Moving forward, we now turn to the town manager's report.
Good evening. This is the town manager's report for February of 2022. I'll highlight some of the key areas related to streets. We did post 15-mile-an-hour speed limit signs on Brookfield and Irish Town Road. Related to the park, staff installed a bike rack at ball field number 7, a new bat and helmet rack in ball field number 7, dugout in number 7. Staff cut up and removed tree from the walking path by the pavilion and community park that was knocked down during the windstorm. We also updated our park inventory list. an update on the dog park kind of etiquette. If you've noticed, there's a Facebook post today and website. We just turned the water on at the dog park on Friday, and somebody today stuck gum in the fountain and blocked up the fountain again. We had repeated problems last summer of the fountain being clogged up. Unfortunately, if this continues, we'll just have to turn the water off to the dog park. Also, there are trash receptacles for your dog poop waste bags all over the park and including at the dog park. There's no need to throw them up in the trees and into the woods. Please dispose of them properly. Related to water, Rainbow Lake is still at the spillway level of 16.6 feet. Our water production and consumption, we produced an average of 205,161 gallons per day and consumed an average of 198,538 gallons per day. The amount of backwash water in the month of February was 13.71%. We purchased 402,550 gallons of water from the Mount in February. For wastewater, we treated an average of 727,000 gallons per day and consumed 198,538 gallons, which meant 73% of the wastewater treated was wild water. We did not have any spills of untreated sewage. However, we did exceed the plant's design capacity four times in February. We received 3.3 inches of precipitation. We currently have a precipitation surplus of 4.06 inches over the last 6 months. However, I anticipate at the next meeting, we will be in a deficit. We're losing quickly. Trash pickup will remain Mondays in the month of April. Some of the highlighted meetings for February. Noteworthy, staff repaired some manholes for snow removal in Silo Hill, Emmett Gardens, and Federal Avenue. Staff also worked with the contractor on a sewer backup on Robindale Drive. We dug up and installed a new curb box at 207 DePaul Street. We installed the contractor installed new probes on the LG Sonic for the upcoming season. That will probably be deployed some point this month. The alum and methanol usage at the wastewater treatment plant has been reduced, which is good news. Vibration analysis, the pumps are running good at the pump station. MDE was on site, conducted an inspection at the wastewater treatment plant and all went well. And our permit was renewed for another year. And that's all I have.
Any questions or comments for the town manager?
I don't know if you know the answer for this. Bulk trash pickup is this coming Saturday.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. There was questions about what was allowed to be put in. Do you know off the top of your head, like mattresses and stuff like that? Do you need a permit from the town before that?
Yes, for a mattress, you have to have a mattress affidavit and it has to be submitted to the town by 4 o'clock on Thursday. Everything needs to be put out by, I believe the trash company comes around about 6 o'clock Friday night. So everything has to be out prior to that. Actually, it's Thursday night at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Everything needs to be out because the contractor will come by Friday to take a look at how many trucks they need.
That gives the pickers a full day to.
Yes.
cover everything too.
Yes.
And just stop in the office for the affidavit.
Either stop in the office or it's also on the website.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the town manager?
No.
Okay, just congratulations on the permit renewal. Please share that with staff. That's a big thing,
Yes.
and appreciated. Moving forward, we turn to the town planners report.
This is the planner's report for February. I'm also just going to highlight some key areas under grants for Chesapeake Bay Trust. I applied for a Green Streets, Green Jobs, and Green Towns grant in the amount of $199,000 for the Silo Hill Basin retrofit project. Under the ADA ramps grant, community development block grant, I had 6 construction inspections, processed payment requests and reimbursement number 5, processed the weekly payrolls, and I attended a progress meeting. As of this date, 81 ramps were completed. The project is completed. 122 ramps were done. The community development block grant DePaul Street Waterline project, I processed 24 income surveys. Amy and I reached out to missing survey properties via phone and in person and letters, posted the 13 remaining properties with the survey. We finalized the income survey and submitted to the state for approval. They did approve that, so we are eligible to apply for $800,000 for the Paul Street Waterline project. Main Street Communities Cooperative Fund, I applied for $10,000 grant in order to fund applications for community legacy who were denied due to lack of funds. This was approved, so the Palms and the VFW will get their projects completed. Conference call, I had 2 conference calls with Potomac Edison and Streamlink representatives regarding the tree planting grant for MS4 permit. They will provide the required town match grant of at least $10,000. Of 12 submitted necessary paperwork for the funds. I received word, I think last week, that we were actually granted $20,000, so that was even better. MS4, I met with the contractor on the 9th regarding the pollution prevention plan, and Steve and I showed him around the town, owned properties, created a street sweeping map for the RFP, created a street sweeping RFP for fiscal year 23. Under the stormwater management utility feasibility study project, I attended a committee meeting, and also I met with the contractor. Permits and zoning, I processed 14 zoning permits. Most noteworthy was 4 single-family dwellings in Brookfield. We have 2 lots left. However, I was just told that they have sold. We're just waiting on the permit applications. Processed 17 backflow preventer permit applications, 1 no zoning permit required form, 1 street closure permit, issued 1 stop work order due to a house demolition, prepared documents for court cases on Wealthy Avenue. I mailed 1 sewer cleanout letter for the sewer and water department, responded to various incident reports. Planning Commission, just various project management under Irishtown Road, reviewed various construction reports. I had to change 2 property addresses along Irishtown Road and Heatherwind Drive due to previous errors. Village Liquors, Plaza Inn, received, review, and created staff memos for the corrected site plan and improvement plan, finalized and recorded their deed of easement. Federal Stone received, process, and started to review their site plan. Rudders, we continue to work with their engineer on sewer construction specification approvals. If you've seen it recently, they've started laying blocks, so they're getting done pretty quickly. Emmitsburg East Industrial Park 2, I worked on the staff memo for the final forest conservation plan, the final subdivision plan for both lots, or combined lots 7 and 8. Also worked on the long-term forest conservation agreement, zoning map amendment, entrance of Brookfield. I worked on the staff memo for the planning commission meeting, created a public hearing advertisement and property postings. We had a meeting on February 28th for the planning commission. Miscellaneous, prepared the fiscal year 23 planning department draft budget, renewed the town stockpile yard erosion and sediment control permit, worked with the contractor on the new town sign project, worked with the county on an amendment to the Maryland Forest Conservation Act to allow more time for municipalities to plant trees with fee in lieu of funds. And there, as always, is your new business and development updates. And that's everything.
Any questions for the town planner at this time?
Actually, I don't have any.
Okay. Mr. Sweeney?
No.
Okay. Quick follow-up, the stop work order for the home demolition,
That
I'm
was on-
assuming that's Carrick Court?
No,
Oh.
that was
very
on
good.
DePaul Street.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, they
Okay.
demoed a house without permission.
Oh dear. Okay,
Yeah.
has the house been completely demolished? I haven't been over there to see this.
Basically everything but the front wall. So
Okay, so they know the steps to rectify their circumstance, or?
they're gonna have to go to the
Penalty.
Board of Appeals for variances now. If you demo more than 60% of any structure, you have to meet current day standards, and things are tight on that street.
Is there intent to build a new structure there, or to just have the lot for another home?
They want to build another house now.
Interesting. Okay, very interesting. Moving from there, well, I'm glad my assumption is wrong. That's good to see in both cases in a way. The RFP related to the street sweeper. So are we intending to use a vendor as we move forward?
That's correct.
Okay,
At least once a month.
okay, very good. And the other piece is the forestry stand 10 project management. What is could you give me like a sentence for a status related to that?
Sure. So their company got a bad outbreak of COVID.
Oh dear. Okay.
So it pushed things back significantly. So we issued a time extension
Sure.
and it should be completed by, I think it was December 31st of this year.
Okay.
So
All right, very good. Thank you. Moving forward, we turn to the commissioner's comments. Commissioner Ritz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say, wow, I'm not used to seeing so many people here tonight. So this is great. And again, thank you to our press corps for attending this evening. Since last meeting, I did visit Tuscany's Pizzeria. While it's not Stavros, I thought that the pizza was very good. Personally, I feel like it's a cross between Carlio's and Rocky's and Thermont. I plan on going back. Hope you all checked it out too. And I believe, I don't know if I covered this last month, just to be sure, keep it real quick. I talked about Frederick County Public Schools band event, potentially at our bandstand. Unfortunately, that's not going to occur due to a liability issue with Frederick County Public Schools. And I don't think that they are interested in using the field behind this building because they need some sort of stage to set up the band. But hopefully we'll have some use for our bandstand soon. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question.
Sure.
What kind of liability?
They weren't very specific. It's because it's not a school property. They wanted to have this, basically, it's an elementary school band concert for the northern Frederick County elementary schools.
Could they be covered under another organization? Who would sponsor them?
I could
For the
inquire.
Lions Club, we have a $2 million policy we use for Community Day, and every time we have an event, we have a policy.
Well, thank you.
We could sponsor them if it's in the park.
I appreciate that. I will relay that message and let you all know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Davis.
I also visited Tuscany's several times. And one of the easiest questions to answer when you have a visitor stop in town is, where is a good place to eat? And every place in Emmitsburg, we're very fortunate. There is not a bad place to eat in Emmitsburg. So all of our businesses in Tuscany's just adds to this. And Lord knows there's enough business for everybody to go around. I don't think they're going to hurt anybody's business. And I just encourage everyone to keep supporting all of our local businesses. And the only other thing I was lucky enough to attend opening day of the Thermont Little League, which for those that don't know, Thermont has opened up their teams to our Emmitsburg children. And I was hoping to have a number tonight, but their total is 333 kids in the Thermont Little League. And I'm thinking probably about 100 of those are our children. And I'm really, really happy to report that they've added girls softball, which will be played on our other softball field. So every field in town will be used this year with the addition with the girls softball. So there'll be ball in town almost every night. So that's a great thing. So that's all I got. Thanks.
That's great news. Thank you. Commissioner Burns.
Yes, thank you. I got to attend Troop 270's Blue and Gold banquet, which they do their bridging ceremony and raising of ranks for all of their Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, which was a great ceremony, a nice dinner, and very congratulations to all of them. I also got to participate and attend the hockey fundraiser for Debbie Olander, who passed away. It was a great event. They had it was about 150 people there. I think they raised close to $5,000 for the family through different fundraisers. The first responders did win 6-4. So good for them. Congratulations to them. It was a great event. I was lucky enough to participate in that and raise money for the local family here. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you, sir. Well done. Commissioner Sweeney.
To add on to Frank, so the softball and Little League will start tomorrow in Emmitsburg. The softball will be playing on the softball field, and I think their coach pitch game starts tomorrow at 6 o'clock. So there'll be 2 games here tomorrow and 2 games on Thursday, but they're going to be playing 3 to 4 days a week here in town, just on those 4 fields over here. I guess they'll be playing on those over there too. Besides, we have a big tournament coming up in June for traveling teams. They will be playing 2 weekends in a row in the town. They use all the fields and all the restaurants and everything. The whole town will be packed. So to let the police know that we'll be busy that weekend. First 2 weekends in June, Saturday and Sunday from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 at night, they'll be playing ball, and the fields will be full. The parks will be full on both sides. We have a Heritage Day meeting coming up on the 18th, Monday. If anybody would like to come, it's at the Knights of Columbus building. We are raising money for Heritage Day now for fireworks, and we had a fundraiser on Saturday with the help of the fire department. Let us use their building. It went very well, so we're well on our way for next year's fundraising we always raise for the following year. I think that's all I have.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Oh, I do have one more.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
We will need the police department for the parades and stuff on Community Day. I'll let you know way ahead of time. It's always the last Saturday in June, where our Community Day is. So you'll know way ahead of time that we need extra officers that they can for the parade and the activities that are going on. Thank you.
Okay. One thing I'll throw in for Community Day, just so everybody knows, Community Day and Heritage Day are the same day. They are the same thing. The names get used almost interchangeably, but what we're hearing is there's a lot of feedback. It appears as if we'll have a lot of people attending, which will be a lot of fun. So just be mindful, the planning's underway. It's going to be a great event. Moving forward from there, in our meeting tonight, we will have a public hearing. We are using new guidelines in a way. They're guidelines we have not used as a board before. So I will walk the board through it at that time. So everybody kind of has a heads up in the process and procedure. The disc golf group is using the disc golf course avidly, and they're doing a great job with it. It's rather impressive. Last week, they hosted a tournament here in town. They had people come from all over Maryland to use the disc golf course. So people are visiting the town, early this spring. It is nice to see that taking place. On a sadder note, Sean Blumenfeld, you may have known, was struck and killed by a car. He was riding and was hit from behind, and it took his life. As the weather grows warmer, there are more people outside. There are more kids who are playing. Sean was, I believe, about 52 years old, approximately. He was on 140 in a vehicle. I'm told the driver, quote unquote, did not see him. Not sure how that's possible, but it happened. To that end, I've been approached by a number of folks asking about a memorial service, and I am hoping to hear back from his family. I've tried to reach them a number of times. So when I know something more, I will share that, and the memorial service will occur to that end. But beyond that, I've not heard of anything. So for the folks who've been asking that question. And sort of on an up note, Sunday on the 11th, is that the right date? 10th, sorry. There will be an Easter egg hunt, the first in-person one we've had in a long time. There are people at this hour preparing Easter eggs. There are going to be that many Easter eggs. It's a 24-hour cycle. There will be about 1 trillion Easter eggs out in the field, and they'll be scoured up in probably about 10 minutes by a lot of small people. So if you know small people, bring them there, and it's a great time. And it is sponsored by the Knights of Columbus. Yes, okay. And it is free. Time?
I believe it is at 1. Is that correct, Mayor?
1 p.m. Okay, all right. And the mayor will not be giving a speech, but will attend? Just wondering. Okay, all right. And with that, I turn to the mayor. Mr. Mayor, yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, Commissioner Davis, on the baseball, and especially the women's softball. That's terrific. Every part of it, youth is great. And I know the disc golf's going strong, and that's terrific, bringing people here. And we're going to readapt our tennis court a little bit give it the potential of having a new game called pickleball on it. We're going to stripe it for it and give it a try and see if it get the usage up. So that'll be something we do. And the cost was like $600 to get it striped. And I went ahead and just asked our staff if they would go ahead and do that. I think it'd be a good addition to our array of things we have to offer here. I think probably, just traditional things like go to the Mount St. Mary's campus alumni symposium and the St. John's College in Annapolis, Santa Fe thing. I go to that and either Zoom or in person. And I had a guest, Sister Martha was my guest in the podcast on Thursday. We spent a lot of time now. Maddie Shaw, former town clerk, is now our grant manager. I think we'd call her that. Spent a lot of time working on the St. Euphemia's wayside station. We And it was processed and finally approved. It went through the Daughters of Charity. That's where I started when I wrote my paper in college on that St. Euphemus and their Black education. And we started there, used that, personal interviews, and I think we're going to present that to the board in May. I think there was at one time a consensus that maybe just go ahead and do it. I think we mentioned it once before, but maybe you all want to take one more look at it and we'll bring it there. But it did run through a lot of people before it got to you. And finally, it went back to the Daughters of Charity for their approval. Just to give you an idea of some of this grant money we're working on, how about $683,000 for to readapt 122 ramps at curbs. We've done that. ADA compliance. We're now in compliance. And hats off to our team here, led by a planner, and of course our town manager is always there. And that's it. We're working on a $800,000 grant for the Paul Street water lines. That project will probably be a 2024 project, but it costs about $1.2 million. But we're going for a grant of about 800,000. All that work's going in. These are big figures. I mean, I don't know, inflation. We're all talking about inflation. I don't know what's big anymore. The dollar's depreciated like 30% since 2001, but they still seem big to me. 800,000, $1.2 million. 291,000 for the Green Street project that goes down North Seaton. We're getting a lot of attention to the north part there, especially to the crest where we have the sheet flow off there caused the flood problem down at the entrance to North Gate. And to go through that, you have the Chesapeake Conservancy Trust, Community Legacy Grant, a federal flood grant. It should be 100% for the grant, about $291,000, but there will be 25 parking spaces on North Seaton Avenue there and it should look good. It's part of a program to, again, stop the flooding, and that's a good point there. I hope you all, have a happy Easter, if I don't forget to tell you that. And the Easter hunt is really big. And one correction here, Friday, April 1st, that this is not a April Fool's thing. Robert Brennan with Insurance Brokers Maryland. I was supposed to have Bobby Phelan, Robert Phelan as a guest, and we had to cancel at the last minute for Insurance Brokers Maryland, but he'll be a guest. We're trying to keep that up at least once a month to have a podcast with somebody here. And I hope to get our Kelly Schultz back again. And we've already had the county executive and president of the Mount, and a lot of, and mother, and not mother, I'll call her Sister Martha in there. So thank you. Let the game go on. Proceed. Play on.
Thank you, sir. Okay, at this time, we turn to our administrative business. The first item we have is.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Ritz, I'm sorry.
public comment.
Yes, sir.
We skipped over that.
Public comment.
It's at the very bottom of the page.
I'm sorry. My apologies. Okay. So if you signed up for public comment on a general topic, this is your opportunity to come forward and speak. I have signed up Ms. Walbrecker, general subject, no specific, correct. Okay, all right. Mr. Ladani, Burfield also very good. And Mr. Carfanta, Burfield, very good. Okay, so we don't have anyone signed up for public comment.
Mr. President, actually, Mr. McKinney did sign up public comment via the town office prior to the meeting.
Oh, very good. All right, so Mr. McKinney, could you come forward?
Commissioner O'Donnell, we'll
Yes.
still need to fill the paper out.
Okay, very good. I'll ask him to do that. Mr. McKinney, good evening. How am I doing? Your audio good? A little bit louder. How's that? Better? Okay. So procedurally, here's what I need you to do. Please introduce yourself. Please give us your home address, and then you have 4 minutes for your public comment. Thank you, sir.
My name is Brian McKinney, 34 St. Joseph's Lane. And would like to bring up a discussion about the track, the water that lays on the track, 2 spots that it lays there. See if we can address it and some ideas. Fix it.
Okay, so You did, yes. So your concern is the paved path in Community Park? Your concern relates to the paved path?
There's two spots that are low lying.
I do apologize. There's two spots that are low lying where the water bridges across the path. And there's a couple of ideas that have been implemented to try to deal with the problem. But the problem, trying to pass the water from one side to the other side when both of the water tables are the same elevation, it delegates it. It
Sure,
cancels
okay.
itself out. Raising the path up, I think, is going to be the best thing that we could do to prevent the problem from ever happening again. But not elevating the actual path, but putting something above the path. That way the water, when it does come up, can flow freely between it.
Understood. Okay. Very good.
That's the issue in two spots.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Is that good?
Perfect. Okay. Staff?
I believe we are aware. And
Okay.
unfortunately, the path was constructed in a floodplain. So fixing it is difficult, but it is something that we've talked about with the town planner and the director of public works. So we are aware of it and see if we can come up with a solution.
Terrific. Okay, thank you. Mr. McKenney, I will follow up with you, sir, and I will follow up with staff and
And I apologize for forgetting my hearing aids.
no problem, sir. Okay, but I'll set up a timeline with staff and hopefully we can come forward with maybe an overview of a possibility of a plan. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKenney. Mr. Ritz, anybody
you.
else?
No, I didn't.
No, very good. Okay, all right. Okay, so now we move to administrative business, the proclamation declaring April 2022 Child Abuse Prevention Month. And Ms. Wiltz, is there someone here to present this evening related to this?
Yeah, I believe the representatives are here and we'll ask them to come on up.
Hi there.
You're going to have to leave the dog with me.
Well, I can't promise that. I will have you, each of you pass around, you want to just pass down, there's pinwheels and also a notepad. Aaron.
So procedurally,
There.
if you could introduce yourself, your organization and its address, and the floor is yours.
Absolutely. So my name's Kristen Dunn. I'm with the Frederick County Department of Social Services. I'm co-located at our Child Advocacy Center. And our address is actually, our building address is confidential, but I will give you the departments.
That's fine.
Do you want the,
Yeah, department, just name the department is fine and that would
Yep.
satisfy it as part of the.
okay, so Department of Social Services is 1888 North Market Street.
Perfection. Thank you.
And that's in Frederick. So I am the child forensic interviewer stationed at the Child Advocacy Center, and the Child Advocacy Center is an agency that provides multidisciplinary team response to allegations of child maltreatment. So we work together as a team with many partners, with our local law enforcement, our state's attorney's office, Department of Social Services, state's attorney's office, did I say that one? To provide a team response to allegations and investigations of child abuse and provide services to the children and families that we serve. In 2021, we served at the Child Advocacy Center 284 children. And I think it's important to point out as well that that is a fraction of the child maltreatment investigations that are handled throughout Frederick County. And it is a community response and something that we're very grateful and thankful to have the Emmitsburg community in support of for Child Abuse Prevention Month. You'll see pinwheels and we've handed them out today, and that's a sign and symbol of a fun, happy, healthy childhood. And so those will be planted. They're out front here and in other communities across the county just to raise awareness of the work that we do. I've got to introduce Eris, right? This is Eris. She's a facility dog. And She accompanied 145 children during forensic interviews last year in 2021. So she's my sidekick and comes with me, sits with children when they are participating in the interviews at our center. So thank you again. Thank you for having us and for supporting the work that we do in the community to help to ensure that children have a safe childhood.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, I'll read.
do you want it? Okay. very good.
Oh, beat the Jeff. Oh. You have to go and meet our labs, but you're more well trained than our labs. Oh, love labs. Good to see you. Take care. Okay, I'm gonna read a proclamation here very quickly. Proclamation, National Child Abuse Prevention Month, April 2022. Whereas child abuse prevention is a community problem and finding solutions depends on involvement among people throughout the community. And whereas the effect of child abuse are felt by the whole community and need to be addressed by the entire community. And whereas effective child abuse prevention programs succeed because partnerships are created among social service agencies, schools, religious organizations, local government, law enforcement agencies, and the business community. And whereas youth serving prevention program often offer positive alternatives for young people and encouragement for youth. Excuse me. It's a really touchy subject, this stuff. Whereas youth serving prevention programs often positive alternatives for young people and encourage youth to develop strong ties to their community. And whereas all citizens should become involved in supporting parents to raise their children in a safe and nurturing environment. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the mayor and council of the town of Emmitsburg, Maryland, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2022 as National Child Abuse Prevention Month in the town of Emmitsburg. Call upon the citizens, community agencies, religious organizations, medical facilities, and businesses to increase their participation in the efforts to prevent child abuse, therefore strengthening the Emmitsburg community. I hope to adopt, if it's meets your measure, I'll turn it over to you, adopt the 4th day of April 2022.
Very good. Is there a motion to adopt this?
So moved.
Is there a second for the motion?
Second.
The motion's been made by Commissioner Ritz, it's been seconded by Commissioner Davis. Is there further discussion?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Can we get some more pinwheels for the square? We have new planners on the square.
Commissioner Sweeney, can you turn your mic on, please?
Can we get new some more of these for the square? Okay, and we have on each side of the square, so we have 4 planters, I believe it is. So we get some for each. They're big planters. They're permanent. Yes, they're permanent, not pots.
Pretty sizable troughs.
Yeah.
Right, I was looking for pots, so I didn't put them out, but I can bring some more.
Okay, thank you. If you can give it to our staff and maybe, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone against? The motion carries 5-0, all commissioners present.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
do you want me to get Mr. McKinney to sign that form before he leaves? I
Sure.
don't think he heard that. So
That would be good. I put in information for him. Okay. Okay, we now turn to our next proclamation. This is item B, proclamation declaring April 16th, 2022 as Arbor Day. Mr. Briggs. Sure, I would be happy to. Okay.
Please announce the dates first, please.
I'm sorry.
Underneath the title, the Streamlink plantings, if you'll announce those dates, please.
Okay, very good. Streamlink tree plantings at the sewer plant on Creamery Road on Saturday, April 16th and Saturday, April 23rd, both at 9 a.m. till 11 a.m. For clarification, someone can come to this event and they can volunteer. Is
Absolutely.
that what
We
we're looking
encourage
for?
as many volunteers as possible.
Okay, very good. So school organizations, youth groups and so on, adults.
Yes.
and- Okay, so 2 tree planting events, one on the 16th, one on the 23rd. Okay. Perfect. All right. So the proclamation related to Arbor Day, Saturday, April 16th, 2022. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the mayor and council of the town of Emmitsburg, Maryland, do hereby proclaim April 16th, 2022 as Arbor Day in the town of Emmitsburg. We call upon all citizens and organizations to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands by planting trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Is there a motion to accept the proclamation? Is there a second for Commissioner Sweeney's motion?
I'll second it.
The motion's been made by Commissioner Sweeney. It's been seconded by Commissioner Burns. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you. We move forward. I'm looking at page 21 of 76. And we have the designation of 2 Open Meetings Act representatives for consideration, presentation at meeting by staff.
Yes, so the Open Meetings Act requires a training requirement for all public entities. Bullet number 1, each public entity subject to the Open Meetings Act must designate at least 1 employee, officer, or member to receive training on the requirements of the act. The designee must take the training within 90 days of the designation. Training taken after October 1st, 2013 satisfies the requirement. As of October 1st, 2017, a public body may not meet in a closed session that is subject to the act unless the public body has designated a member to take the training. And each public body is required to retain its own records of compliance with the training requirement. It's the recommendation of staff that 1 commissioner and 1 staff member be designated as the Open Meeting Act representatives. My recommendation for the staff would be Ms. Julie Scott, our new town clerk, and then I will defer to the board for their recommendation for commissioner.
I'll go if we don't have anyone else joining in, or I'd be happy to have, we can have more than 1. Is that correct?
Correct. You can have more than 1. Anybody that's taken the training after October 1st, 2013 will satisfy the training requirement. I would highly recommend that at the summer conference for anybody that's going, they are having an Open Meetings Act course.
Okay. So
Okay.
I'll attend that. Hopefully I can go with
Guess I might as
somebody.
well get to- I'll be down too.
All right, very good, Mr. Sweeney. Okay, terrific. So Mr. Sweeney and myself will be designated Open Meetings Act representatives. Is that the best name?
Along with Ms. Scott.
With Ms. Scott. Yeah,
Mhm.
very good. Okay. We need a vote for this?
Yes, please.
Very good. Is there a motion to,
You can't do it.
I can't do it. You can't do it.
Is there a motion to designate Commissioner Sweeney, Commissioner O'Donnell, and Ms. Scott for the Open Meetings Act's representative?
So moved.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 No objections? All, anyone against? Nope. 5-0.
That's one of those where you put your head down. When they're-
Thank you.
We want to thank everyone for
Cool-
volunteering.
cool lot.
I touched my nose first.
Okay. At this time, we turn to the consent agenda. There's a potential for an appointment.
There is a request for postponement. We have not had any volunteers. So the mayor is currently seeking an alternate for the Board of Appeals. If anybody's interested, please reach out to the town office and we'll get you in touch with the mayor.
Terrific. Okay, thank you. We now turn to the treasurer for the treasurer's report.
Good evening. This is the treasurer's report for April 4th, 2022. This is the cash activity for the town of Emmitsburg as of March 28th, 2022. We had a cash balance on March 1st of $7,917,737. We had deposits in the amount of $258,463, withdrawals in the amount of $571,309, with left us with an operating balance forward of $7,604,891. The top 10 check amounts are listed below, and any questions you can appoint towards staff.
Any questions for the treasurer or for staff at this time?
No.
Hearing none, we move forward. We turn now to the planning commission report. Mr. Ritz.
Mr. President, thank you. The Planning Commission did meet on March 28th, and the following occurred regarding Federal Stone, which will be located on Creamery Court in Emmitsburg East Industrial Park 2. Planning Commission approved the request for no sidewalk, curb, and gutter, approved the reduction of required parking spaces from 42 to 38, approved the reduction of number of required bicycle parking spaces from 2 to 0, and the Planning Commission tabled to vote to approve the vote on the site plan for Federal Stone in order for many conditions to be addressed. And the final item was that the Planning Commission voted in favor to recommend to the Emmitsburg Board of Commissioners that RJD Development Corporation successfully demonstrated a mistake in zoning for the 2 parcels at the entrance of Brookfield on Timber Mill Run. This relates to agenda item number 2 this evening and the public hearing regarding lots C and D to be rezoned from B1 neighborhood commercial to R1 low density residential. Planning Commission is not scheduled to meet in April. I believe our next meeting is tentatively scheduled for May 23rd. If anyone have any questions? Nope. Thank you.
Great. Hearing none, we move forward. Okay, we now turn to our first agenda item related to consideration for real property tax rate that exceeds the constant yield tax rate. We turn to staff.
Good evening. I'll give a quick clarification of what the constant yield tax rate is. It is very confusing. Cole and I have done a lot of homework and reading up on alerts. So basically, the state assessed the real property in the town of Emmitsburg. The last assessment was January 21st or January 1st of 2021. The next actual assessment will be January 1st of 2024. Based off that assessment, the assessed value, if the value doesn't change by more than 25%, then the constant yield tax rate can remain the same. If the assessments are over 25,000, then the state will send us what the constant yield tax rate should be. Years past, we've been able to keep our assessed or our constant yield tax rate at 0.36 cents or 36 cents per $100 because we were under the $25,000 threshold. If we don't want to go with their recommended constant yield tax rate, then we must advertise, which we did in the Frederick News Post, as well as Facebook and our newsletters and website, letting people know what the recommended constant yield tax rate would be. So basically, for the tax year beginning July 1st of 2022, the estimated real property assessable base is going to increase by 3.7%. From 205,155,221 in fiscal year 21 or 22, excuse me, to 212,780,599 in fiscal year 23. If the town of Emmitsburg maintains the current tax rate, which was 0.3464 per $100 of assessment, the real property tax revenue will increase by 3.7%. Resulting in $26,414 of new real property tax revenue. According to the state, in order to fully offset the effect of increasing assessments, the real property tax rate should be reduced to 0.3340, the constant yield tax rate. It's staff and the mayor's recommendation that we should not reduce its real property tax rate enough to fully offset increasing assessments. The town of Emmitsburg is proposing to adopt a real property tax rate of 0.3464 per $100 of assessment, which is the current approved rate for fiscal year 22. This tax rate is 3.7% higher than the state's recommended constant yield tax rate and will generate $26,414 in additional property tax. Last year in fiscal year 21, in fiscal year 2020, our tax rate was 0.36 or 36 cents, excuse me, for $100 assessed. The constant yield tax rate recommended by the state was 0.3485 for a net difference of only 22,000. Therefore, we weren't required to change our tax rate. In fiscal year 21, fiscal year 22, we received notice from the state that the recommended constant yield tax rate should be 0.3464. However, due to COVID and I think not receiving information quick enough, we were unable to hold a public hearing to keep our tax rate at 0.36 cents or 36 cents. Therefore, we reduced it to the 0.3464, which cost the town $27,870 in revenue. So this year, instead of going with the 0.3340 constant yield tax rate that the state is recommending, town staff and the mayor recommend maintaining your current tax rate at 0.3464, which will net you about $26,414 in revenue. And talking to Cole and talking to the state, we anticipate this being a yearly thing as our assessments are going up. So the recommendation from the state will more than likely be to continue to lower your constant yield tax rate.
Any questions for the town manager related to this? Commissioner Davis?
Oh, no, just a comment. And the comment is, they tell us to lower our tax rate, but they keep giving us unfunded mandates. So, I mean, we can use that money for the unfunded mandates. And, I think it's kind of hypocritical there to say, hey, you have too much tax money, but we want you to lower, but here you need to give us more back. So you know which way I'm going.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Ritz?
Yes, just to simplify it, right now, tonight, our tax rate is what?
Our current tax rate is 0.3464. And that will continue through June 30th of 2022.
Which the majority of people have already paid, being fiscal year 22.
So we're not looking at fiscal year 23 yet. That'll be at budget time.
No, this is for fiscal year 23.
Okay, good. So
Yes.
we're just looking to maintain the same tax rate.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Although technically we could lower it per Maryland's recommendation.
That's right. You could lower it to the 0.3340.
But then essentially
But-
we'd have to put it back up again the following year, the way it's going.
More than likely, because we essentially you missed out on $27,870 in revenue last year because we lowered it. This year, it's, you're talking about a $26,414 difference. So that's, you're over $50,000 in revenue lost. And if it continues to trend down, as we all know, expenses and inflation and gas and oil prices continue to skyrocket, your budget's going to take a hit.
Commissioner Sweeney?
How long was our tax, 36 cents per 100?
I know, I've been here 8 years and it's been 36 cents the entire time until last
remember.
fiscal year.
Correct, so it's only been lowered one time, just last year.
As far as I know the mayor,
'Cause we
I
haven't
think,
raised it. We haven't raised it at all for for years and it's been 36 for
No.
as long as I can remember.
Member Briggs, yes, sir.
Excuse me. Thank you very much. At one point, we were at 0.42, and we went down to 0.36 when the whole, because the community was suffering. And so we took that hit, but you know, you keep adding 25,000 a year onto these things. It gets very expensive. And, you know, it's not one person pay it. We're defraying this over 800 houses. I'll rough that out, 800 homes and the business is this 25 grand. But when it comes here to the finish line, to pay for all these things, the rising costs, you know, the train's got to run on time and things got to be done here. And it's getting more challenging, as Commissioner Davis pointed out, that they ask more and more from us, but then they start taking it away from us on the other side. Thank you.
Commissioner Burns. Oh, you're good. Okay. All right. Very good. So the staff for clarification, so the staff recommendation is to maintain.
That's correct. To maintain your current rate at 0.3464
Okay.
going into fiscal year 23.
And did the state provide a rationale beyond expenses increasing, or, I mean, was there some deficit on their, in any
It's
review
not
of
so-
our?
I wouldn't, the way I would explain it is, it's not so much a recommendation. I know there's a state law that requires that they provide us the constant yield tax rate and what the change would be based on the increased assessments. If the assessments hadn't outpaced the 25,000 additional revenues, we wouldn't go through this particular procedure. But since it's keeping the old rate would increase the difference in tax revenue by over 25,000, we have to conduct a hearing and do the approval to keep the old rate or the current rate.
So if we were to have sort of I hate to ask you, sort of the crystal ball projection, do we anticipate a need for raising taxes in the near or far future based on our current rate of spending and what our obligations are?
That's hard to tell.
And that's why I say
That's a
crystal ball,
difficult
so.
question to answer. But even we all understand inflation. We all understand the state of the country. As you will see the budget come to you in May, there's increase across the board from gas to oil to electric to chemicals, just to everything is increased. So as the cost to operate the town continues to increase, you know, the burden is passed on, you know, to your taxpayers. So to answer that question, unfortunately, maybe.
Sure. Okay, fair enough. Commissioner Burns.
So if I'm reading this correctly, had this not gone up $1,414, we wouldn't even be talking about this right now, because it's saying 26,414 is what it would be generated, correct? But if it would have stayed below 25,000, they wouldn't even given this as a suggestion to us.
Correct. It would be,
Okay.
yes. And that's what occurred in prior years. With all the years that we kept the current rate at that 0.36 for several years, the increase in assessment applying the current rate was below that $25,000 difference.
So as the assessment went up, that jacked.
That made it slightly go over to $25,000 limitation.
Quite the threshold. Okay, any questions for staff or further comments? No, all right, so I'll reread the agenda items so we understand the framework that we're looking for. To consider a real property tax rate that exceeds the constant yield tax rate, the board will consider whether or not to reduce the real property tax rate sufficiently to fully offset tax revenues resulting from increasing assessments to make the property tax revenues equivalent to their prior year's tax revenues, the constant yield tax rate, excluding new development. So with that in mind, the motion that we're seeking, and I want to make sure we're framing this correctly, is based upon staff recommendation of maintaining the current tax rate of 0.3464 per $100 of assessment.
That's correct.
Is that correct? Okay. Therefore, is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Thank you. The motion has been made by Commissioner Davis. It has been seconded by Commissioner Burns. Is there any further discussion related to this item?
Nope. Nope.
Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone against? The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, staff. We now move forward to our next agenda item, zoning map amendment, public hearing and consideration for lots C and D as shown on the final plat of section 1, plat 1 parcels C, D, and E of Brookfield recorded in plat books number 58, page 40. So, Mr. Golden, based on the recommendation I have from you at this time, we now need to close the meeting. Is that correct?
No, no.
All right.
Just proceed as normal. It's just, we started the public hearing.
All right. So, board, we have a slightly different procedure from what we've seen in the past, slightly. So, in a moment, we'll call the hearing. Will be a swearing of witnesses. Okay, there will be a staff presentation. All right. Beyond that, we'll have the applicant presentation. After the applicant presentation, we will have commissioner questions. And I'll pose to you the time and I'll cue you with the opportunity. After the commissioner's question, there'll be an opportunity for public comment. So for the individuals who've been very patient, we are almost there for you to give your public comment. All right, from there, the applicant may rebut and there may be follow-up comments. So the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond to any comments at that time. Following that, we close the public comment and then we turn to, make sure we have this right, we turn to deliberation and the board. At that time, we bring it to the board for our consideration. We have our discussion at that time, should there be a need for said discussion. And then we go to a finding of facts and we go forward from there. So that's our overview, and believe you me, I don't expect anyone to memorize it, so I will try to walk us through it so we hit our marks appropriately and we have the opportunity. So at this time, I will call a hearing. The meeting to consider a zoning map amendment application for lots C and D as shown on the final plat of section 1, plat 1 parcels C, D, and E of Brookfield recorded in plat book number 58, page 40 has now started. All right, so Ms. Powell, I turn to you for our witnesses to speak, to be sworn in. Who will these be?
So, excuse me. So what the commission should do at this point is have everyone stand, you administer the oath. So
Okay.
that would include staff who will be testifying as
Okay.
well as any members of the public and the applicant.
Okay, so I'm going to stand over here at this end of the dais. For staff members who are commenting, please stand. For board members, I'll ask you to stand. For the three individuals,
They don't have to.
We don't have to.
You guys are good. You're not
We're okay?
testifying. Yeah, no, because what you're going to do is make the specific findings.
okay, you had me a little, all right.
Sorry about that.
All right,
To confuse.
so board, we're in the clear. All right, so I'll go over here nevertheless. Those who intend to speak, who have signed up, I'll ask you to come forward, and we have Ms. Walbrecker, Mr. Ladani, Mr. Carfanta. I'll ask you three to stand, and here we go. Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the response given and statements made by you in these proceedings will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth. If so, state, I do.
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you for being sworn in. We now turn to staff.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. The applicant and owner is RJD Development Corporation, Richard Demit. Application type zoning map amendment, the current zoning district neighborhood commercial B1, proposed zoning district low density residential R1. The purpose is to rezone lots C and D in Timber Mill Run from B1 to R1 in order to construct 10 single family dwellings. This public hearing was advertised in the Frederick News Post on March 14th, 2022, and the properties were posted on February 11th, 2022. At their meeting on March 28th, 2022, the Planning Commission held a public hearing found that there has been a legal mistake in the original zoning and recommended approval of the zoning map amendment application via a 2-to-1 vote. 2 members abstained. The mayor and staff support the application. So I'm going to briefly give a little bit of a background. Just bear with me here. Background: a petition to amend the town of Emmitsburg zoning map by rezoning a particular property. A piecemeal map amendment may be submitted at any time in accordance with Maryland state law. In order for a piecemeal rezoning to be granted, petitions for a zoning map amendments, when not a part of a comprehensive rezoning undertaken by the governing body, must be judged by the change or mistake rule. Change in the character of the neighborhood. It must be shown that there has been a change in the character of the neighborhood since the last comprehensive zoning plan, where the request for rezoning is located. As part of this premise, an applicant is to provide an accurate and acceptable definition of the neighborhood where the change is alleged to have occurred, the specific events that have caused the change, and describe the character of the neighborhood before and after the change. Mistake in original zoning. A mistake in the current zoning can be shown to have occurred when there has been a failure to take into account projects or trends probable of fruition. Decisions based on erroneous information, facts that later proved to be incorrect, events that have occurred since the zoning ordinance, or ignoring facts and evidence can all contribute to a legitimate mistake having occurred. The petitioner is alleging that there's been both a change in neighborhood and that a mistake was made in the zoning of the property by virtue of the adoption of the last comprehensive plan and comprehensive rezoning in 2015. The proposed action: the Board of Commissioners will hear the evidence of the mistake and the change in the character of the neighborhood and determine if there was an actual mistake or if there has been a change in the neighborhood. It should also make findings on the following elements: population change, availability of public facilities, present and future transportation patterns, compatibility with existing proposed development for the area, the relationship of such proposed amendment to the town's comprehensive plan, and also the recommendation of the Planning Commission. Even if a mistake or change in neighborhood is found to have occurred and positive findings are made with regard to the various elements, this only permits a rezoning and it does not require a rezoning. The recommendation of the Board of Commissioners should state what it found, the evidence supported, and it can also give its recommendation as to the worthiness of granting the rezoning if the findings support that. Conditional zoning in accordance with our town code 1744-040. A, the Board of Commissioners may impose additional restrictions, conditions, or limitations as may be deemed appropriate to preserve, improve, or protect the general character and design of the lands and improvements being zoned or rezoned, or if the surrounding or adjacent lands and improvements may upon the zoning or rezoning of any lands or zoning or rezoning of any land or lands, retain or reserve the power and authority to approve or disapprove the design of the buildings, construction, landscaping, or other improvements, alterations, and changes made or to be made on the subject land or lands to assure conformity with the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance. B, conditions imposed or requested may not include the allowance of uses not otherwise expressly permitted in the district. C, the Board of Commissioners shall submit for comment from the Planning Commission conditions not reviewed by the Planning Commission at their own hearing. So if you wish to impose conditions, it has to go back to the Planning Commission for review. Conditions imposed by the decision of the Board of Commissioners shall be made public concurrently with the decision. And as I said, they shall be enforced by the Board of Commissioners through the Planning Commission. Staff comments: the task before the board is to determine whether a change in the character of the neighborhood or a legal mistake support a recommendation for the rezoning of the applicant's property. In evaluating the request for rezoning from the comprehensive plan, in this case, adopted in 2015, the applicant bears the burden of establishing a change or mistake. The comprehensive plan is presumed correct. The amount of profit that one can achieve from one type of rezoning over another does not support a determination that change or mistake exists. So A, change in neighborhood. To establish a change in the neighborhood, the board must first define the neighborhood and examine what has occurred in the neighborhood since the comprehensive rezoning. It must then consider whether these changes resulted in a change in the character of the neighborhood. The fact that development has occurred on land consistent with its current zoning does not constitute a change. Here, although different zoning designations appear to have existed previously based on certain zoning maps from those currently depicted, staff has been unable to locate any ordinances documenting rezoning from parcels within the neighborhood defined by the applicant. Originally, the colors used on the map for business designations and residential were very similar. It is also believed by staff that the zoning in Pembroke, where a current non-conforming use is located, was erroneously designated as commercial based on that non-conforming use. Likewise, the subsequent development of residential property zone residential does not constitute change as noted above. Given the lack of written documentation supporting rezonings of the properties in the area, staff believes that none has occurred. Legal mistake. To find the mistake, the applicant must first prove the conditions that made the zoning incorrect, and two, determine if the board failed to take those conditions into consideration. Here, there is no evidence of any factual findings made by the board at the time of the comprehensive rezoning as to this particular property, nor is there any discussion of trends or other factors on which they may have relied. The board stated that retail would be beneficial for the surrounding residentially zoned property, but any analysis relating to the viability of such zoning is not apparent. At this time, there is already a small retail convenience store in the area, and the viability of additional retail B1 zoning is doubtful, given the fact that substantial commercial development has occurred less than a mile away from the subject site, and the impact of that development does not appear to have been considered or even foreseen by the planners at that time of the comprehensive rezoning and the adoption of the most recent map. The total population of Emmitsburg in 2010 census was noted as 2,814 residents. In 2020, it is reported to have decreased to 2,770 residents. And there's Exhibit A attached, which is the most recent census data. The lack of population does not support the need for additional commercial retail space, particularly when such commercial development is already close proximity to the property. There is likewise no evidence that the valuation of any of the surrounding properties would be harmed by this request for rezoning. The proposed rezoning supports the addition of a small number of additional housing units and is consistent with the housing that has been and is currently being built in this neighborhood. The area of the town is largely residential. Further, this additional development would assist the town in maintaining its viability with the increase of residents to alleviate the drop in population. The town has adequate infrastructure to support this development of the property if it is rezoned, and the transportation patterns will be consistent with that of the neighborhood. In addition, development trends demonstrate the need for additional residential housing. This is readily known given the tremendous shortage of residential units available and the lack of inventory in Frederick County generally and in Emmitsburg in particular. In conclusion, the mayor and staff support the applicant's request based on the following conclusions. One, the proposed use of the subject property is consistent with the neighborhood. Adequate public facilities are available, and residential development on these two parcels is consistent with the existing transportation patterns. The rezoning to residential is compatible with the current residential nature of this area. Two, the relationship of this proposed amendment in the town's comprehensive plan actually makes this more consistent with the current zoning in the area as residential and supports the commercial zoning that is less than a mile away. Three, it appears that the proposed rezoning of the use of the subject properties will not cause substantial detriment to adjacent properties, nor will it materially impair the public interest. Four, it appears that the applicant meets the legal requirements set forth in Maryland state law and town code for legal mistake in that zoning and the surrounding areas and population and new retail trends were not foreseeable, or if they were not evaluated in conjunction with the prior comprehensive rezonings that located commercial property less than a mile away in a small population of the town, which is insufficient to support further commercial zoning. Likewise, the trends in purchasing practices has gone away from retail establishments to online purchasing. And five, at their meeting on March 28th, 2022, the Planning Commission found that the applicant has met the burden of proving a mistake in zoning and voted to recommend approval of the application. You can see attached Exhibit 2 to your staff memo detailing their findings. Leslie pointed out some items to consider when determining the findings of facts. I won't read through all of that. I'm sure you had time to read it at your home. And on page 8 of staff memo, there is our suggested motion. And that is my presentation.
And one thing that I would like to add, because the board needs to make specific findings, regardless of which direction it ultimately chooses to go, what we are going to do is, after you go through the process of making the findings and taking your vote, we'll go back and prepare an ordinance that fully sets forth those findings, so that that ordinance itself would then be adopted at your next meeting. Because obviously I don't know what findings you're going to make. And so rather than have an ordinance that is not helpful for future generations, I think that this is the best way to go. So with respect to the ordinance that was included in the package, because it was based on findings that you would make, which, you know, may or may not be accurately recorded for posterity, that's what my recommendation is.
Okay, thank you. That's a brief summary, you said. Indeed, just saying. Okay, moving forward. So we turn to step 4, we turn to the applicant, and we anticipate a presentation by the applicant or on behalf of the applicant. With that in mind, if you were doing this on behalf, if you would identify yourself, your point of your address for your business, your shop, and begin.
Good evening, President O'Donnell, members of the Board of Commissioners, and Mayor Briggs. For the record, my name is Bruce Dean. I'm an attorney with the law firm of McCurdy, Dean and Gratitor in Frederick, Maryland, representing the applicant RJD Development and Mr. Richard DeMitt. In addition to my presentation, we will also be hearing from Mr. DeMitt. And following his testimony, I'm going to ask for a brief summation, and then we'll be able to answer any questions that you all might have. I do want to thank Leslie and Zach for the staff report and the staff presentation. I think that it was very thorough and very helpful to us in preparing tonight, seeing how the staff saw this. But what we are requesting tonight is the rezoning of 2.85 acres that, despite being infill and surrounded by the town, has remained vacant for decades, for more than over 20 years. It has been undeveloped, and in our opinion, it is undevelopable with its current zoning of B1 neighborhood commercial. In 2009, the town did make a specific finding that they thought that neighborhood commercial in this part of Emmitsburg would be helpful to the neighborhood as it grew. But then in 2015, it does not appear that the town went back to look at that decision to see if it was still valid. And it is our contention that it is not valid, and that time has proved it so. During the intervening years, not only has the town changed in that the east side of Emmitsburg has seen a fairly significant amount of commercial development, but the dynamics of commercial and retail and office development have changed dramatically. I've been a land use attorney for almost 35 years here in Frederick, and really in the last 5 to 7 years, we have seen a tremendous change in how the development community views retail and office. In fact, frankly, real estate is booming in Frederick County everywhere, except for commercial retail and office. Those are the two things that people are avoiding, or in fact changing when they can, because they don't work anymore. They don't work for a couple different reasons. I think COVID really accelerated how offices are viewed. People have learned how to work from home. The builders I talk to now view that people are going to be continuing to work from home even when COVID is over, or at least part of the time. Certainly the gas increases, which I don't see going away anytime soon, also contribute to people's desire to work from home. And so in effect, a house is now more than just a place to sleep. It's also become a place of business. It's your office. Retail and that type of commercial has changed. Obviously, I think that was accelerated by COVID. It certainly started before that. Other than groceries, I don't think I've bought anything except for online in about 10 years personally, but not everybody was an early adopter of buying things through the internet, but certainly COVID made that very much a part of almost everyone's daily activity. So what's happened really is over the last several years, the zoning in the neighborhood hasn't changed in that Mr. DeMitt's property is still zoned commercial, but over the 20 years, it has become less and less viable, if it ever was. I think it also needs to be noted that these properties have effectively zero visibility from West Main Street. I think we all know that for commercial to be viable, whether it's retail or office or anything, it needs to be findable unless it's a destination retail, which is like a grocery store. And I don't think that this is property that would be sufficient for that type of use. We did submit a substantial legal analysis with our application and our justification statement, and we also followed that up at the town attorney's request with a supplement to further delve into the legal reasons why we believed a change in the character of the neighborhood had occurred and why we believed a legal mistake had occurred. So I'm not going to bore you by going through all of our legal argument a second time. Hopefully you've had a time to read it. It's in the record. So we will be able to answer any questions you might have about those arguments. But before that, I do want to turn it over to Mr. DeMitt, who is going to talk about his ownership of the property over the last couple decades. And then, as I said, when Richard's done, I'm going to come back and do a brief summation.
Hello, my name is Richard DeMitt. I am the owner of the
Could we get your address also?
yes,
please? Thanks.
located in Clarksville, Maryland. My address is PO Box 228, Clarksville, Maryland.
Thank you.
And I've owned the property since 2000, the year 2000. And shortly after that, a few years after that, I started looking into developing it. And ever since then, I started the residential portion, and of course the market fell apart, but now it's come back and we're back here to try to finish the project out. But the commercial component was something that seemed exciting to me at first, but I tried the market, tested the market, called lots of different potential users and couldn't find anybody had any interest in. And there's two lots that are out on Route 140 that adjoin my property. And all these parcels are pretty small for any decent sized retail. I even contacted that owner out there because they were trying to sell it, and they didn't have any luck. And I told them if I ran into somebody that needed a bigger piece and they ran into somebody, we kind of talked back and forth and agreed to try to work together if we had a tenant that needed something larger. And through all these years, we haven't been able to get anybody that had any interest. We've, I've even reached out to daycares when they were really popular, and coffee shops and stuff like that. And just there was nothing that no one thought they could make it there. So that's why I feel that there's no real need or demand. And it does seem like the retail's all on the west side of town. And I thought a lot about it. And I thought, if this town was bigger and growing a lot more, and like the east side was like 5 miles apart from the west side, maybe it'd be worth to have some kind of center over here, but it's so close that no retailer is going to want to duplicate anything that's on the east side over on this side, unless the population grows like crazy. And it's just, it would be a long time. I don't see that the town boundaries won't really allow that. So it's, I really feel there was a mistake at some point when it was planned. And I wasn't involved in the original planning of this project, so I'm not sure how that came about. But anybody have any questions?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
So as Zach said in his staff report, you do not have to rezone this property, even if you do find that a change in the character of the neighborhood has occurred or a mistake has been made. But if you want to, if you believe that there's a mistake, or if you believe that the zoning on this property should be changed, we believe that we have met our burden of proof on this case. As detailed in the staff report, there has been, in our opinion, a definite mistake in that the viability of the commercial zoning was not really gone into in any great detail in 2015. But we also believe that a change in the character of the neighborhood has been made. Staff says that they can't find any evidence of any rezonings that have occurred, but we have submitted evidence that in fact 5 properties in the immediate vicinity of the applicant's property has changed. The zoning has changed. Zach, can I pass this up or?
Sure, actually, yeah. Terrific. Okay. Are these all the same?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good.
So as you can see by looking at that exhibit that Lisa Gradator prepared for you, we believe that 5 subsequent rezonings have occurred since 2015, between 2015 and 2021. These were the 2 Pembroke parcels where the color has changed. I think you can see on 2015, it was red, which was commercial B1. And then those are now R1. Lot 4 in Fraley's addition went from B1 to VZ. And then the 2 parcels in the condominium were rezoned from VZ to R3 as shown on that map. So it may be that staff does not have evidence that any legal action was taken by the town to change the zoning of those parcels, but nevertheless, it appears to us pretty clear that the map has changed. So we believe we have made a sufficient finding for you of both changing the character of the neighborhood and mistaken zoning. And we feel that the proposed rezoning to the R1 would both further the town's growth priorities by allowing a vacant infill property which can serve the growing residential need, can also generate tax revenue and hopefully help address the decrease in the town's population. But also, I think that what we're asking for is completely consistent with the neighborhood. The single family lots, staff said 10, but 3 of those lots are under existing zoning that's out there. So it'd really be an addition of 7 houses. It's a very modest request. So we do think that it does meet the town's requirements and that it does further needs for the town and further address needs that the town has now for additional residential, modest, but residential growth. So with that, we thank you for your time. And Mr. Demit and I are here to answer any questions you might have of the applicant.
Okay, so we're going to step 5. So this is for the commissioners. This is a direction to you. Are there any questions, commissioners, for staff or the applicant at this time?
Yes.
Mr. Ritz.
Are we, I have a few. Are we just gonna go through my list and then go to another commissioner or just bounce around?
Why don't we stick with you for the moment?
Okay. Because my first question would be directed to staff. When do we next officially review the comprehensive plan, the town of Emmitsburg?
So state law requires we do it every 10 years. So we need to probably start our review late 23, early 24, and it needs to be adopted in 2025.
So if this particular request is denied this evening, would the applicant need to reapply at that time or to change the zoning at that time? Or could we just use that information and make that change then?
Either. So he would not to reapply, he would need to be involved in the comprehensive plan process.
Okay.
I think the code states they have a year. If it's denied, they have to wait a year.
That's right. Oops, sorry. With respect to an individual rezoning request, it would be a year gap.
Oh, I
That
wasn't
has
aware
to
of
be-
that. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
that's different though than the comprehensive plan process. So They're two completely different animals.
Understood. Thank you. Second question, I guess would be to the applicant. I already know the answer to this. Mr. Demit did touch on it the other night, but just for the record for this meeting. If this request is approved for the zoning for those two lots, what type of housing would be built on those two lots?
It would be single family residential on single family detached residential, similar to the homes that are in Brookfield today.
Thank you. I don't know who this would be addressed to. It might be staff. Okay. I've been alerted, and many of us have, that during significant rainfall, Brookfield tends to experience runoff issues, and that the current stormwater management pond appears to be at its maximum capacity. Now, you think by now I'd be an expert in stormwater management ponds after all the discussions that we've had, but maybe that's the pond just doing its job. However, with those 10 homes being built in very close proximity to that pond, and because they're downhill from the other homes existing in Brookfield, are we looking or thought about any potential flooding issues and any issues that may relate to, sorry, this is a multiple part question.
I can address it from the applicant's standpoint if you would like.
Sure,
Which is
please.
that under Maryland law, and I'm sure the law governing development in the town of Emmitsburg, Mr. Demit cannot, in fact, negatively impact the neighborhood by increasing stormwater runoff. Whenever you do development and create additional impervious area, whether it's a driveway, a sidewalk, the footprint of the home, he has to provide stormwater management for that impervious area that he is creating.
Okay.
So it is fact, I'm not an engineer, but I've been doing this, like I said, for many years. And that is an absolute prima facie examination that this town staff, and I don't know, Zach, if you defer that to the county for stormwater management review.
Yeah, so what I was going to say is if this is approved, Mr. Demit will have to go through the whole kit and caboodle with the subdivision improvement plans, and that includes stormwater management, erosion, sediment control. He will have to prove to the county that that basin is sufficient for that stormwater management.
Or create additional.
Or create
stormwater
additional,
management.
yes.
That's right.
Okay, so I guess my other part of that question was, I couldn't find it anywhere. Are we concerned in any way, the close proximity of building houses near the existing stormwater management pond in Brookfield?
I'm not concerned with that. I have full faith, and credit in Frederick County stormwater management that they'll make sure it's done right, or they won't approve it.
Mr. Ritz, I'll jump in again. Also, I'll qualify myself as not an engineer, but an observer.
Sure.
I watched them build the first stormwater management system. I watched them rebuild it after there was an issue and it was modified. I have never seen it near its capacity. They went from a one-stage system to a two-stage system. Right now, however, there are hay bales on the stage one collector area.
Correct.
I don't know why yet, but I'm interested to find out, but maybe not here at the moment. But my point is, I don't know that there's been any weather that we've seen so far that has been threatening to use the spillway. I think maybe once it's hit that the spillway where it's like an emergency exit for the water versus the mechanism, like the hardscape structure, the infrastructure that's in there.
Okay, so
So-
you mentioned stage one, so there's a multi-stage
Right,
system.
it's like a
Okay.
two-tiered system. There's like, for lack of a better term, there's a slightly uphill capture, and then that leads to a slightly lower massive capture. And typically it's dry. But
Okay.
again, no expert here, but I've never seen it, near its like spillway. I'll say it that way. No, I'm not aware of never crossing that.
I remember, maybe I'm confusing it with something else, but I remember getting pictures sent
It
to
was,
us.
it was on the north, like before they finished the road leaving onto Irishtown, there was a lot of complaints about the flooding there on the sidewalks and the roads and the dips and the swells
Okay,
there.
so that wasn't the stormwater. I think there's a lot of discussion regarding stormwater ponds at that time. Maybe I'm mixing the two up, so.
There
okay,
was a
thank
lot
you.
of erosion and stormwater coming off of new construction,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't have proper barricades in place. So you saw a lot of muddy water that was just coming, basically sheet flowing off that construction, going into the pond. I do receive triennial inspections reports
Yes,
for each basin in town, and they've always passed the ones I've seen. So
the Brookfield pond.
yeah,
Okay,
I don't have any concerns.
thank you. That was already done. You know what? I'll go ahead and defer to Commissioner Sweeney at this time. That's fine.
Continuing with the storm drain,
One more time.
continuing with the storm drain, talking about the storm drain with the MS4 requirements that we have. Could the new parcels or the two small parcels or whatever, the 10 houses are there, can that be like impervious? Can we make that as part of the MS4? I don't know if he's interested in doing that, but just like Seat Center has the roadway is drains through, I mean, it might give some of our requirements for MS4.
It's my understanding that the basin was constructed after 2002. So that means that the impervious is not counted negatively against our MS4 permit.
I think the question was more towards the,
Are you asking if the street and the sidewalk could be pervious?
Yeah, it can be
Okay,
put in
so
as
I think
a
we're asking a different.
natural
question.
drain.
Oh, okay.
finish,
It wouldn't make a difference to our MS4 permit
No,
since it's draining to an adequate basin that's considered treated. Now that may change with our next permit cycle. We don't know. So
Maybe better safe than sorry. I have it. Any other questions, sir?
No.
Mr. Ritz, we come back to you unless Mr. Burns, you have something? No? Okay. Mr. Ritz, we turn to you.
What, no, I'm the only one, or we're
So
just-
far, yeah.
Okay, oh,
Yes.
sorry, okay,
I
just
have
making
one
sure. I
question,
get
but
it.
you haven't broached it yet, but I think you might, so I'll let you drive the bus.
Are you talking about the email that we received this evening?
No.
Are we going to address that this evening? I'll leave that up to you
Why don't
as board
you-
president.
I didn't see this email.
From the Brookfield HOA was sent to us prior to this meeting,
What time?
3:30.
3:30.
I did not see that. I was commuting. I mean, basically I went from commuting to home to here, more or less. So
I haven't seen it either.
They issued a statement, but before I mention that, it was my understanding that a survey was sent out to the Brookfield, from the Brookfield HOA to residents of the development, seeking their input on this matter. And I was going to inquire about that this evening. However, the Brookfield HOA is not here.
okay. In relationship to the email that you've mentioned, did it come forward with any
No,
conclusion? Okay, so no definitive leaning one way or the other. Is that what you're saying?
they were leaving it in our hands.
Okay.
We would make the best choice.
And may I speak to the Brookfield email, which some of you and some of you have not read? I would strongly suggest that this not be considered as part of this hearing this evening, because what you're considering is the propriety of a change in zoning from B1 to R1. The issues that appear to have been raised on behalf of Brookfield HOA, and we know nothing about it because I have no indication that this was actually a board action or a board authorized action, is something that is inappropriate, I would
Okay.
suggest at best for this topic this evening.
All right.
Mr. Ritz.
Did you get it in?
Yeah, I was going to show you. but-
Oh, that's all right.
You're out of luck.
I think I do have one other question. I think we're looking at this though as our approach is a little different than we're accustomed to. We're almost, this reminds me a lot of a Board of Appeals meeting and the Planning Commission meeting that we were at. So I was going to touch on the amount of homes being built and what affecting schools and things like that. The fact that our water and sewer system, how's it going to impact that? I personally feel that the addition of 10 homes will not adversely affect our current water and sewer system. However, that's something we will need to address with future developments in town. So at that, I'm sorry, I'm rambling on here. but
It's
just
okay.
Thinking out loud. I do that a lot. I'm gonna go ahead and stop right now. I have no further questions. Everything else was addressed. So I'm good to go for now. Might be something else before we deliberate.
Excuse me, Commissioner Ritz, you're right on target. The adequacy of the public facilities is something that in fact this board should consider and should in fact make findings on. And so to the extent any of this information it hasn't already been provided to you in the staff report, I would suggest that this is the perfect time to ask the applicant or the applicant's representative.
I thought that was at the fact finding stage, like number 7 of our list.
Well, you have to have the evidence to make the fact findings. And so to the extent that you believe that further testimony would assist you in making any appropriate findings, this is your opportunity to ask those questions of the applicant. And keep in mind, you can also ask questions of anyone making public comment.
Thank
as
you.
well.
Okay, yeah. I don't know how to phrase that then. Commissioner Burns.
The obvious concern I think a lot of us have is we've obviously experienced a lot of issues over the last several years with the infrastructure, whether it be the water treatment plant, the pipes in town, and things of that nature. In addition, we have Emmitsburg Elementary, which is right here behind the town office building. And the information you provided us with being near capacity at 92%, and then the county numbers of each home counting for 0.13 students per home put in would not put it over capacity. However, I personally think those numbers are very skewed because of each of those homes does put a single child in there. They're going to be over capacity very quickly. And with the recent findings that have just come out from Frederick County saying that they're going to invest all the money into Thurmont and not Emmitsburg Elementary, I have serious concerns with this development as well as future development that's going to happen in town because nothing has been structured to look at what can be done for the elementary school, as well as we know we have some money coming in to be directed towards the water treatment and to the pipes and stuff like that. And that's great and all, but if we don't address the fact that all these homes are going to go in, whether it be 7 now or the future development, we're going to neglect what could possibly be the future of our children's education at the school here. And what, if anything, will the developers do or future developers do to help push Frederick County to recognize the fact that, hey, this school hasn't been updated in over 20 years. There's mobile classrooms out there that have been there for quote unquote 18 years. And I believe it was addressed with the board at Mother Seton School, who was able to pull out some of the facts that when Brookfield was initially put in with that number of students coming in, those mobile classrooms were only supposed to be mobile for a certain amount of time and not be existing still to this day. So my personal concern is basically everything I just stated right there. And that, yes, we want the development and we need the development in order to put the pressure on the county to look at the schools. However, we can't just blindly say, hey, put the school, put all these homes in, and there's nothing going to be done for that school.
Is that a question?
What, if anything,
Okay.
would you, your partners, and any future development do in order to help the town with the development and improvement upon the schools?
Well, as far as future development, are you talking about like future annexations or future subdivision approvals that are on
Future other land developments in the town as
in
well.
the town that are not currently developed? Because I
Correct.
mean, it's a little bit, goes a little bit beyond the scope of this.
Correct. And
hearing.
I understand that,
Okay.
but I think we have to look at the larger picture at the end of the day, because 7 homes now could be 45 homes being discussed in a year from now. And it'll be great that these 7 homes go in and it's going to help us put some pressure on the county.
Mhm.
But if you watch how the county has worked over the last 20 years, it's going to we have to put those 45 homes in before they recognize a school. But how can we put the pressure on it now to help us? And I know they're going to say, hey, we need the development in order to put the pressure on the school.
Right.
And this is going to help us. But at the same time, that 0.13 per home is an absurd number, in my opinion, because you put 7 single family homes in, and you're inviting families to move into those homes, you're going to have more than one child. There's going to be families that move in with multiple children, and that school will be over capacity in the blink of an eye.
So I would like to address that part because that is something I'm actually, I would hesitate to say an expert on, but it's something I've been living in my career for the last couple of decades. And the number sounds insane because who buys a 4-bedroom house and has 0.1 kid? I get it.
Yeah.
But what happens is you have people like me who've raised their 4 children through Frederick County Public Schools, and they're now all gone.
Correct.
And so my wife and I are living in a large single-family home with just the 2 of us rattling around. So the 0.13 is an average. And so Brookfield has been around how many years now?
18.
18 years. So I guarantee you there are families that moved in there when those homes were new who are now empty nesters. And that is why that 0.13 is an average over all of housing in the, and the thing is that the school board, Frederick County Public Schools, uses Emmitsburg feeder patterns and Catoctin High School feeder patterns to determine those numbers. I don't make them up. They come from the,
and I understand that.
but they
it's
are
not a
based on
reflection on you.
no, I
Are
understand.
you asking for DeMitt and the group to partner with the town to put pressure on the school board?
Would love it.
We would
to-
be
to-
happy
so
to help.
to
Right. And
provide
I think,
letters.
and I think we're on the same page
Okay.
in
Right.
saying that we can only say so much. It's one thing when it comes from us as a board. It's another thing when developers start interjecting as well.
Are you also asking
And that's why
for,
he's smiling.
I'm laughing because
Well,
they think that we're completely biased and that we don't,
okay,
that they think that your words are much more valid than ours.
Right. And I
Oh.
think that your words are going to be.
Well,
just as valuable to us.
we would be more than happy to partner with the town in requesting assistance for the elementary school.
are you also asking for in that partnership, maybe some donation to the school?
That's a lot to ask.
Commissioner
We're-
Burns.
This is sort of an odd moment because if we're going
I-
adequate public facilities, it kind of goes slightly on the gray.
I don't think we can do that.
No, I don't think you
Yeah.
can either.
Yeah,
Okay.
no,
Because I just want to make sure you're not.
yeah, so part.
No,
part-
I'm not asking. for
Yeah,
that.
I don't think we can go there because we don't control the Board of Ed. We don't control how they use any funds they receive. We cannot control, well, we can try to influence, as you've noticed by,
And that's the goal
campaign.
we're trying to achieve. I mean, honestly, the point he's making about adequate public facilities, especially related to the public schools, is a very relevant one to our community. And we've got a chip on our shoulder. And that chip comes from, we feel we are being profoundly underserved
Mhm,
by a good school system.
right.
And we want that opportunity for our children and the children of this community that we're not seeing. And we're trying to take the long view on this issue.
Mhm.
And any partnership that we see with a credible partner is a welcome partner because it has gravitas. And that's what we're seeking.
Well, and so do your voters, may I just say.
Oh, absolutely.
There's an
And we're-
election.
We're
coming up.
representing them and they
Yeah.
voice that in no uncertain terms to this board. I mean, you can hear, my tone has been elevated. I'm sure. I'm
Sure.
bright red. I know my good partner here, Commissioner Burns, who doesn't always agree with me on everything. He's, running this flag up the hill.
Mhm,
And I know we might hear voices echoed down the line.
right.
But this is something that is so important to us. So if we can have a partnership in something like this, it has great value. So, to your point, the voters, and I know you're advocating for us and trying to keep me within the box. But,
Sorry.
The voters have spoken to us.
Right.
ad-
Well, they also need to speak to the county. That's
and-
what I'm
right, this is
suggesting.
true.
I'm not trying to derail this in any way, shape,
Yeah.
or
No, you're not,
form.
you're
And this
not.
was an
Understood.
opportunity for
think I
discussion.
I
Yeah,
agree. And
this
I
is-
appreciate
This was
that.
a discussion between the two. And obviously,
I
you know,
appreciate that.
when all the facts are laid out in front of us and it says 0.13 and you look at it from a logical standpoint
Right.
and you go 0.13, that's a
Doesn't-
4-bedroom home. Like,
Right.
it's not 0.13. And I understand, Commissioner O'Donnell, his children are moved out and, there are
Not all of them.
not all of them, but there are,
I'm not in a
there are
hurry.
those homes that are sitting with, empty nesters and things of that nature. So those numbers are, and it's just difficult as a parent with young kids, and
Yeah.
there's other parents here with young kids to see that number and say 0.13 and see that going over capacity and the fact that that school has not done anything. Yes, the development is absolutely going to help us in the long run to put
Right.
pressure on the county. And I understand that completely. And that's why, therefore, I'm, agree with this.
Right.
However, it's this opportunity to be able to voice that. So it's out there and, you know, if this is the step one of what could be future development going on
Sure.
here in town. And it's something that needs to be addressed here and be known so that, hey, as we go down the line, hey, look, if we're going to put in 45 more homes in the
Right.
next development, that 0.13, again, is not a true reflection of what could possibly be going in there. And, you know, so on and so forth. And so it wasn't trying to derail where
No,
we're
I
headed in
understand.
anywhere this, but it was more of like, hey, look, like this needs to be known right now that, yes, we agree that these homes are going to help us in the long run. It's going to help us with our tax revenue. It's going to help us with everything else. And it's going to help us put more pressure on that. But it needs to be known when we talk about what is adequate infrastructure, it's not just water and sewer. It is our elementary school and what the long-term effects of that are.
Mr. Burns, are you set for the moment?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Briggs, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. I don't know, we may have spent some of our powder. About 10 years ago, I invited the Board of Education Representative, Mr. Barnes. I've known for a long time, and he got his ear. And we went over and toured the elementary school. We talked to the principal at that time, what were her principal needs. And one was they had a leaky roof in the gym and they needed new air conditioning. And I think that cost over $500,000 to do at least, I've heard as high as $800,000. So they have put money into, I know it's an old school with the walls, and you're a professional teacher. Are you paid for your teaching? No, okay. And then, but it's, and I sent a letter to them, and I thought maybe you all had a copy of that letter. So we're trying to bring that up again, to keep it in front of them. And Commissioner Blue is interested. Councilman Blue, I guess we call it. And, but they have pumped some money in there, and that's it's 800,000. It's almost $100,000 a year they put in. It really needs a lot of work. And I know we go down to Urbana and see that palace, and you go over to Oakland or Oakdale or whatever it is,
Linganore.
and you hope they replace the whole school at Linganore. And we're struggling up here with this guy. It only goes 5th grade. So
I understand completely. My kids went to Frederick High and West Frederick Middle and graduated just as they built the new ones. So they never went to a new school in their entire lives. But you know, I appreciate all the comments, and Commissioner Burns, you know, with any luck, the land use attorney on the next residential project will be me, and I'll remember all this. But you know, it actually helps to hear from everybody, right? It doesn't, the fact that you're considering adding, you know, 7 houses is probably not a tipping point, but if it's a concern that the town has, that can be made known. As the mayor said, it's not Ray Barnes anymore. He retired. It's now Beth Passerb, who I'm pretty familiar with. We deal with school issues a lot. Her and Paul Lebo, who's the director of operations, you know, they do want to hear from people. And I know they know that you're concerned, but I don't know that they know that there's been portables out there for 18 years if they haven't been paying enough attention. You know, that seems like a long time.
No, I understand this is not a sprint to the finish line. This is a
Right.
marathon we're in right now. And these 7 homes are mile 1 and 2 to help us get to
Sure.
where we're going. And if it's known right now, and I think we're both in agreement that, hey, look, this is a partnership that is going to help us get to that next level. It's going to push us over that hill at mile 12.
Right.
And all the future homes that are going to come in here are going to put the pressure on the county to recognize that, hey, look, we're bringing development in, we're doing everything South County is doing. And you need to turn and recognize the fact that, hey, we're just as important as they are down there, and we need the same respect, and the school needs the same respect as they're getting down south with the development we're putting in here.
Okay. Mr. Sweeney, I'll get to you in a moment. Mr. Burns, want to make sure you're set?
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Golden, you had your hand up for a moment.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
just one quick comment. The mayor, Kathy, and I have a meeting with Mr. Lebo either this week or next week. So we're going to try to put a little bit more pressure
So
on him as well.
Yeah.
The school.
We've been on the books, I believe, since I've been commissioner here.
Wow.
Renovations done or add-ons to the school, and I've been here for 23 years, and they're still have not added on anything to the school.
We look
They
forward.
Put a new roof and everything on, but I think we were on the books. I don't know if we're still on the book to have work done and improvements on this since before Linganore was built.
Sure. And we can echo those statements.
We look forward to their site plan for the new school.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I apologize if I got us off topic.
Not at all.
Sorry.
No,
It's actually very relevant.
Dormants were renovated already before we haven't done anything, so just a new roof.
Understood.
They renovate or add on to those buildings. So when you do that, please, tell them.
Absolutely.
Come up here and go to school.
Mr. Ritz.
no, I don't think Mr. Commissioner Burns needs to apologize because as Ms. Powell stated, one of the issues that we're looking at this evening, finding fact, is the adequate public facilities. And I think that falls right into it. And I'm not here to discredit the school. I agree. The size of the school is getting dangerously close to at capacity. Again, I'm a little confused too. Is it 10 homes or 7?
It's 7 new homes.
Seven.
Would be of it. There's zoning for 3 already.
Okay,
So the plan that we submitted with our application shows 10, but there's only 7 new ones.
okay. So the addition of 7 new homes, will that make or break our current water and sewer infrastructure? Again, I don't think so, but that's something that, we need to look at. That's part of the whole process of developing Emmitsburg and fixing what's broke before we continue to build. Just to remind everybody that.
Zach, would you want to mention the water capacity plan that we just completed that will address Commissioner Ritz's question?
Oh, yes. Kathy, Jimmy, Dan, and I had a meeting the other day, and with all the investments that the town's made in the past several years, we actually increased the number of taps that we have to approximately 300. So we were worrying we were down about 150, 180, but Kathy was going to state it during the budget, but I think it's appropriate to state that we have adequate water taps now.
Any more questions for staff or the applicant at this time?
I do not.
Okay, staff, I'm going to turn to you just with one question related, or a question related to the zoning map that was provided by the applicant, and I'll keep it short and sweet. The changes that we see on the map, in majority, do the changes relate to the change in vernacular that was put upon us by the county or the state, or?
Miss Snail and I dug through ordinances, resolutions, policies with the towns going back to 2008, 2009, and we could not locate anything other than the ones we recently done with the Phelan property. Truly, I believe that it's color coding errors going from map to map, but we have to, that's our conclusion.
Great. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I just want a clarification there. Okay, so board, at this time, we're going to conclude with your blessing this part of the discussion, and I would like to have public comment at this time. Any board members have any concerns with that?
Nope.
Hearing none, at this time, I invite Ms. Diane Welbrecker forward. Ms. Welbrecker, good evening. If you could identify yourself and your address, and you have the opportunity to speak.
Just dropped everything.
Oh, dear.
Hold on a sec. I'm old. Okay. Diane Walbrecker, 535 West Main Street. And I can tell you what happened when the comprehensive plan was initially done, because I was the one that led the effort. And it took us 2 years when we did the first comprehensive plan for the town. And I want to ask you guys why you moved or why you still live in Emmitsburg. It's a small town community, right? People know each other. It's sustainable. People can walk places. All right. And I know you guys have been sitting for 2 hours. We all have too. So bear with me. Part of the effort and the vision that we did in the comprehensive plan was to make the community sustainable. And I would encourage all of you, if you haven't yet, and I'm not going to embarrass anybody by asking you to raise your hands if you've read the comprehensive plan, but I have it right here. Okay. And we talked about sustainability and maintaining our small town character. And part of that is not, sorry, I'm a little emotional about this. You guys have been listening for a while. Part of sustainability in a community is a mixed use pattern of development, residential, neighborhood, commercial. Now, I know that the applicant kept referring to commercial. What B1 is not commercial like a big grocery store or a drive-through establishment. It's neighborhood commercial. And what the applicant is saying is that we made a mistake in the comprehensive plan because we didn't think that far ahead that all the commercial development would be on the east side of town. What we wanted to see was some commercial, neighborhood commercial development on the west side of town. Because when people can walk to a neighborhood store, when people can go out and pick up a loaf of bread or a gallon of milk and walk home, it makes for a better community. It means that you're seeing your neighbors in the store. It means that you're walking past them on the sidewalks. A town becomes divided if you have all the $400,000 and $500,000 homes in one neighborhood, right? They're all together. Then you have a section where you have a lot of big homes, but a lot of people living in those. And then you have all commercial development. That is not what we wanted to see. And that is specifically what we wrote into the comprehensive plan. They did not change that when they looked at the comprehensive plan in 2015. They said, we still want to have a sustainable, and of course, some of my notes got messed up, but community design, one of the 12 visions was compact, mixed use, walkable design consistent with existing community character. Existing community character starts with Main Street, Emmitsburg, which is the heart of our community. All right. So what we're doing by putting all the big ass, the big homes, yeah, strike that word, but the big homes all in one place without any neighborhood commercial that people can walk to. Now, the applicant is saying it's consistent. Can I finish my sentence? It's consistent with the neighborhood. I submit that the neighborhood is not Brookfield. The neighborhood is the western part of Emmitsburg, which includes portions of Welty Avenue, includes portions of West Main Street. And I don't think we asked enough community members, because if you read that legal description, I can't even understand it. And I've been chair of the planning commission. So, just to say to people R1 to B1 to R1, people aren't going to understand what that means. You got to tell them. And I think in this case, we did not do enough outreach to the citizens. And I would hope that you guys would consider what we wanted in our comprehensive plan.
Not at this point. Let's get Mr. Bob Ladani coming up. We might have an opportunity. I want to check procedure. Mr. Ladani.
Hi, Bob Ladani, 370 Timber Mill Run.
Thanks, sir.
Been here for about 17 years. And so has that commercial property been commercial property. I have talked to the developer several times and they have had nobody even remotely interested in, because of the cost, developing that property for them. I would like to see it stay vacant. Be honest with you, I'm in the first house on the right going up Timber Mill Run. It's a nice, drive coming in, but it's not my choice when somebody wants to sell that property, which they're able to do, to a individual who wants to build a commercial, building there. I would rather see houses than that. That intersection at Timber Mill Run and 140 can't handle the commercial traffic. If you're talking about 10, 15 cars an hour, into two parcels, two businesses or more, we'd have a nightmare on our hands. You also have downhill coming on 140 from the west to that intersection. You'd hear a lot of sirens going. You'd need another traffic light, things to consider. So, basically, I would rather see the houses. I'd rather see the houses for the town. It would help the town, all of us. It would help the neighborhood. It would help with the schools. It may be a little tight. Who knows who's moving in? I know there's a lot of people moving out. So it could be in a year, we could be a net loss with 10 more houses, of people in there. One thing I would like you all to consider in what you're doing here is when you make the decision, if you do make the decision to approve the change, allow it to go through. Let them finish the 10 houses. I saw what happened halfway through. In the booming market, like it takes for Emmitsburg to ever grow, they were shut down. We have been sitting there for 10 plus years. Had we finished that neighborhood, we would have had 40 or 50 more homes helping out with our bills up here, supporting the community and what have you. And that didn't happen. Fortunately, now we are in another market like that. How long will it last? I don't know. So I would hopefully you'll reach a decision very quickly. And if it's a yes, they can get moving on it. And while we can, there's not a lot of interest in other properties up here right now that I'm aware of. So if we can, work with the developer, and I think they'll work with the town, it'd be a plus for everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Okay, at this time, I call Mr. Chuck Carfonta to come up, please.
Hi, Chuck Carfonta, 118 Smithwood Avenue, Catonsville. Of course, I'm associated with RJD Development. I do support the, oh, you like my hat? Yeah. The Jayhawks are playing. My grandson goes to that school. He runs Division I for track and field, so I better be wearing it tonight. So anyway, sorry to get off track, but I support the mistake made in the zoning back in 216 that they were overlooked. Now, back in 1966, when I used to go to Ski to Liberty out of high school, that's how old I am, there was a store on the right-hand side, right in the front there. It was called Rudders. And then, fast forward to 2000, I get involved with developing up here, and it's vacant store. The store is vacant. There's nothing there. Rudders left. Rudders was a very successful company, and they couldn't make it at that location just back then. So the property right next to Rudders is still laying undeveloped. And if you want to put a copy, why isn't there a coffee shop there now? Or so that part of the town just wasn't designed. And our property, if you go back and drive on Timber Mill Run, you'll see a big entrance brick feature, which opens up the gateway to Brookfield community. And all this property is inside that. It's not outside that. So that's where the site distance doesn't work either. But anyway, I just wanted to support the mistake in the zoning. And it's like I said, I think if you go back to 1785, where that sign says, there was no building or anything ever built on that property except maybe corn or beans. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, and that concludes the public comment for those who have signed up. We move now in our steps. Sorry. To deliberation. So for the board at this point in time, we open this to discussion. Let me clarify one thing. No, I'm sorry. Yeah. We go to the applicant's opportunity for a rebuttal and then follow-up comments from the board. So assuming you're approaching the podium that you want to rebut.
No, I only wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to rebut, so I didn't have to stand up and say please. But given the lateness of the hour and the fact that I have no idea who's winning the basketball game, I'm gonna stop checking your phones up there. No, I'm just kidding. I have nothing to add at this point. Just thank you.
Terrific. Okay, thank you, sir. Okay. Ms. Powell, for clarification's sake, Mr. Burns asked earlier, are the board members allowed to ask public commenters questions?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
The board is allowed to ask any presenter questions.
Okay.
And I would suggest to the board as well that, you know, when people make the effort to come here, you should listen to them. And the whole letter writing concept is something that is probably should go by the wayside in these quasi judicial processes, because you don't have the ability to cross-examine or follow up on any of the things that may have been said
So you're
in written
referring to the email?
submissions. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
referring to
I
the
got you.
email among other things, but you know, it's the Maryland courts have been very clear that in a quasi judicial proceeding, which is what this is, you make findings, but everybody also has a right to cross-examination.
Okay, makes good sense. Okay, so with these things having been said, is this therefore the appropriate time for questions from the board to presenters?
Yes, it is.
Very good. Okay. Mr. Burns, you asked first if you are still interested at this time. Would you like to call someone to the podium? We'll just do this. Since we've introduced the individuals and had their address presented, we could just ask them to repeat their name when they hit the podium, first and last name, and then Mr. Burns, you'll go from there.
Yeah. Just Ms. Walbrecker.
Yes, Mr. Burns.
Understand completely the original idea behind the comprehensive plan and having that commercial feel where you can walk and do something like that. Having spent a ton of time in Montgomery County and the way all those are set up down there, growing up in outside Philadelphia and the structure of everything there where you could walk and do things like that. Understand completely where you're coming from. However, it's been 18 years and we still haven't seen anything of that nature. And I understand where you're saying, you know, your $400,000 homes up there, but you have to recognize there's also those same homes behind the town office right here in Southgate as well. There's been, you know, other homes that have been developed and things of that nature. You have properties that are looking to be developed that, you know, more homes like that could go in as well. So there's opportunities for those in the future. I think you know, having read the comprehensive plan, it was a great idea to possibly put those in the front. However, it might have more beneficially served had they been in the central location of where everything was going to be built, because now you're looking at it from a developer standpoint of if that was at the top of Timber Run Mill Road, people could then focus their attention on going into town per se versus leaving out of town. People were understanding what the thought process was behind the comprehensive plan is if people were going to walk down to that, it better serve them to drive down and head to Jubilee or things of that nature, because you can do more of your shopping and stuff like that. So I understand completely where you're coming from, but at what point in time do you recognize that it's been 18 years and nothing has ever come to that? And at what point in time would you have looked at this and said, okay, maybe we need to look at this differently?
And thank you, Commissioner Burns. I think that's something that I neglected to mention because I forgot that I was on a time clock. So what I neglected to mention was that I think we need, after COVID, there have been changes in commercial value and what people desire. Now that people are working from home, they may actually want to see a business incubator there. They may want to see a place where they can have a conference room. They may want to see a place where they can go in and do printing, where they can do copying. They may want a childcare center there
But ultimately,
where they
wouldn't that
didn't
have- we
before.
would have to zone that completely different than for something of that nature with
No.
copy centers and stuff like that,
No,
because
no.
if it's zoned residential,
Neighborhood, no,
One at a time.
neighborhood
One at a time.
commercial.
but if it neighborhood commercial, is that allowing for a Kinko's and things of that nature? And I'm asking staff.
What is a
Would a
Kinko's?
Kinko's and, you know, larger commercial box stores like that be considered residential, commercial, or?
No, if you're thinking like Rudders with the gas stations and Walmarts, that
No, I'm not thinking that large, but as Ms. Walbrecht said, like something smaller, like a Kinko's, a FedEx, smaller of those. I work from home and I need to go make copies, or I work from home and I need to do a Starbucks run or something like that. Was that even considered in that zoning for
Mhm.
residential, commercial?
yes,
Neighborhood commercial. The only thing that you can't have a drive-through.
correct.
So, but
You can have an eating facility, you can have a daycare center.
But I ask you this then, is that after the 18, or we'll call it 17 years leading into COVID, there was no interest. And even coming out of COVID now, there still hasn't been interest in that. And that you have more people working from home and more people spending time in their homes versus outside their homes. And there still hasn't garnered an interest from that.
Well, but I would propose to you guys that the job of selling an idea, the idea of selling property is not up to the commission. It's up to the person who bought the land originally with it zoned like it was, neighborhood commercial. So the applicant is saying that there was a mistake in the original zoning. And I'm proposing that I don't think we're looking broadly enough to see what other opportunities there may be for neighborhood commercial, again, neighborhood commercial, to be in that location. I haven't tried to sell it. That's not my job.
But the question becomes is how long do you wait? So if you have 7 homes and 7 taxable households that are ready to go right now, how much longer do you wait and reject that to try to put in some kind of commercial?
I think what you need to do is make sure that you've asked the people on the western side of the town and gotten plenty of input for it, because it took us 2 years to do the original comprehensive plan. We had surveys that we sent out. I knocked on doors, and so did lots of other people. Knocked on doors, got ideas, and that is what our town said it wanted. When the town looked at the comprehensive plan in 2015, it did not take out those ideas of sustainability. Another idea that was in the comp plan that is not exhibited by what you see now is a variety of housing options so that you can maintain lower income people in the town along with what you've got already, so that you build a community of a variety of people. Our kids can't afford to live here anymore. They have to move out. So, I mean, I know it wasn't proposed in the original comprehensive plan, but that mixed use, mixed residential, commercial is very important. And if we can't have a neighborhood commercial, maybe we could have R3 residential. But I think that that can wait until the next comp plan. And I would encourage you guys to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Walbecker.
Thank you.
Other commissioners, are there other presenters that we have questions related to? No, okay. Anecdotally, the coffee thing. I'll give full disclosure, not a coffee drinker, don't have a bias against coffee drinkers, but when the good people were selling the homes in the Brookfield development, and even early on in the Pembroke Woods development, there were frequent discussions among the salespeople selling a lifestyle. And one of the lifestyle points they were saying was, there's going to be a coffee shop there. They had made it sound like they were developing a coffee shop as part of the neighborhood. So I think that's where a lot of this, part of this, not what Ms. Walbecker is talking about with comprehensive plans, but a lot of this sentiment comes from, related to that type of retail. So it was clever salesmanship, because they were really selling an emotion more than facts. So, and a lot of people were definitely influenced by that. Okay, I'll be quiet. Any other items or questions for presenters? Last call. Hearing none. No? Okay. We therefore move forward, and we now go to closing of public comments. The public comment period on the application is now closed. Ms. Powell, does that align with where we are on your agenda?
You are right on target.
Okay, very good. We turn to item 9, deliberations. Now, number 9, the board president yourself will open the discussion now for our board members. Okay. Anybody want to?
The question is, do we, as a board, feel that will commercial work there now or in the future? So I think that, since everybody, I was here when the other comprehensive plans were done, both of them, both times. Because I've been here a long time. And I remember we did want that to stay commercial because we wanted to bring some out that way at that time. But as of today, in the last couple of years, I don't feel that the commercial development will ever go out there. And I'm surprised the convenience store that's there now is making it because they got the liquor store, because they got alcohol. It might be helping them stay up a little bit, but Rudders couldn't make it there. And Highs was there before Rudders. High store was, if you remember the High store. So we need to know as a board decide if we think commercial is ever going to work there. If we don't think it's going to work there, then we need to change the zoning at this time. It's done.
Okay. Mr. Mayor.
There is one other person, the Rudders was bought by Tony's Pizza Place and down in Thurmont, very successful. And he took another look at it, and it just wasn't a market thing, and I marketed for him. But with the operative word there from Mr. Dean is the Esquire, that it's, you look at linear, you got to have demand. You have to have a developer who understands this demand and then transforms it into something building it. And these people are going to rent, if they're lucky, they'll get 1,200 square feet. And the shopping center we have out here, strip mall behind that, feeds off the generator, the traffic generator, which is Jubilee. And even everything out there benefits from Jubilee being there. If you get gas, get lunch, get pizza, everything like that. And those people are paying rents that they'd like to get out of. And if you don't have the traffic out there, it's a second tier property. And I remember with Miss Wahlberg, and this is 1998, aren't we talking about something like that? I remember that. Yeah, it's a lot working with the EVPA. So those are the only things I can tell you. One of the biggest I review appraisals for commercial banks now, and the biggest sector of problems is retail. Will that come back? Will they be able to pay the rent? Or who wants to do it? Who wants to do a mom and pop today anymore? I mean, we've seen them downtown here. We had the variety store there. We've had a magic show. We've had a piano store. And it's just, anyway, that the operative word I think there is just that a developer won't do it because it's not feasible. The no demand right this now, and the costs are high.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, you said we're good. Okay, very good. Okay. All right. Any other deliberation from the board? Yes, Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, well, the mayor, you're picking on my property though. They were all the places moved in and out of my place. What the, I can't help it. And the rent wasn't that high. I don't get that one. But anyway, Ms. Wahlbreaker, I understand what you're saying. Being born and raised here in town, and this is going to be hard for some of you to understand, but at one point there were 5 grocery stores on Main Street in Emmitsburg. There were 2 bake shops. You would have had a bake shop right beside your house. Green's Bakery was right next door to your house. And you could walk to do whatever you wanted. But the way of life has changed. Unfortunately, it's just, that's not what people are looking for anymore. People are looking, as the mayor said, to do that one-stop shop, to get out there in the east end of town and get everything they need and go back home. And they're in the house. You don't see people out anymore and about like we used to be. And unfortunately, it's just other communities around us have developed the exact same way. If you look at Tawnytown, all of their business is on the east end of town. If you look at Thurmont, all of their business is on the, I guess it would be the south side of town. That's all where it developed. And that just seems to be the way small towns are growing. I'm not saying I like it, but that's just what's happening. And I just don't see anything happening there on the west end of town. And in order to put in there, you need population. Well, you can't get any more population if you don't build the houses. So what do you, what comes first, the horse or the cart? So I feel for you and I understand what you're saying, but life has changed, unfortunately. And, I used to love to go to the bake shop to get our bread for the restaurant because they always gave me a free donut, so that was my big deal. But it's just not there anymore. Just not there anymore. That's all I got.
Mr. Ritz, yes, sir.
I'd just like to thank everyone that came in for public comment this evening. Do appreciate that. This is a tough decision that we're looking at. And I agree with a lot that Ms. Walbrecker is saying. I guess my only concern is if we do reject this request this evening, then yes, the lots will just stay vacant, non-buildable for commercial. But I have a feeling too, if we reject this evening, we're going to be looking at these again during the next comprehensive plan. And that's why I brought that up first this evening. I think we're going to be looking to rezone them at that time anyway. So I know I'm speculating the future. Mr. President's giving me a look of concern, but I agree with Commissioner Davis, the intent, the walkability and the small town atmosphere with the comprehensive plan was developed. I guess you're alluding to the 2009 version. I just feel that I think it would better benefit the town if we're not going to actually build anything in those lots than to proceed with the rezoning for building the additional homes at this time. And that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Ritz, I wasn't doubting you, honestly. I was distracted by something here that we have a big piece of work to get done.
Sure. Whatever you say, Mr.
I'm not really sure. I'm like, oh gosh, we've got to jump through these hoops. Okay, so with that in mind, are there any further deliberations from the board to share at this time? Okay, so Ms. Powell, I turn to you for a moment related to part 10, the fact finding. And on our agenda, we have ordinance requires findings on the following issues. So I'm going to go through the questions for our board just to hear them, and we're going to take them one at a time. Do we need a vote for each item or a consensus from the board, or how do we determine what the fact we have found is?
That's a big question. Okay, so what I think that probably the easiest thing for you to do is to, and these were put out there for your consideration, because you can't just say, yes, a mistake was made, or we believe that legal mistake was made, because, and keep in mind that legal mistake isn't like, oh my gosh, you guys before us did something horrible or weren't paying attention. I mean, because that's not what legal mistake means. Legal mistake means is that something either wasn't considered or couldn't have been considered at the time of the prior comprehensive plan enactment. And so these questions, I think you can go through and discuss them and determine whether or not the applicant has met his burden of proof. And if you have a consensus on each of these points, then you can refer back to it when the motion is made and incorporate those findings just by reference in the motion. And then when we prepare the written ordinance, it will have each and every one of your fact findings as the support for whatever direction you decide to go in this evening.
Okay, so to the board, I ask you if you would carefully listen to these items. I want to walk us through the questions. I'm not looking for answers right now. I'm just looking to present the questions, and here they are. First question, is there a difference of change? Sorry, is there evidence of change in the neighborhood to justify a rezoning? Next, is there evidence of legal mistake sufficient to justify rezoning? Now we look at a set of others. We may also consider these other elements. Has the population changed? Has the availability of public facilities changed? Has there been a change related to present and future transportation patterns? Has there been a change related to compatibility with existing and proposed development for the area? And the relationship of such proposed amendment to the town's comprehensive plan? And then is there a change in the element related to the planning commission recommendation? And it adds, if a mistake or change of neighborhood is found to have occurred and positive findings are made with regard to the various elements, this only permits a rezoning. It does not require a rezoning. So we are not obligated to rezone if we feel that these aren't hit. All right, so moving back to the first question, is there evidence of change in the neighborhood to justify a rezoning?
I recommend we approve the zoning map amendment applications, the findings of the facts stated by the planning commission.
Okay, all right.
Since the planning commission essentially went over every single one of those questions and made the recommendations to us as outlined.
Okay, so you're satisfied based on the presentation, by the vote rather, of the planning commission?
And the findings that were presented to us, yes.
Okay, very good.
I'll second it.
Very good. Motion has been made by Commissioner Burns. It has been seconded by Commissioner Davis. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Powell?
So in addition to incorporating the findings that were made by the planning commission, I would suggest that you address some of the additional findings of fact that are set forth in your packet. And you could make the motion, because what it sounds like you're doing is you're leaning toward approval of the rezoning application, and that's just me prognosticating, okay? But what you should do then is just go through, and I'm well aware about the ball game, right? The pressures of the sports activities, but it would help for you to go through and just determine that, you know, whether the proposed 7 additional units are compatible with the existing neighborhood. That's a yes or no. I mean, these are easy findings for you to do, and you can go through it, boom, boom, boom. And so, yes, incorporate the planning commission's recommendations and findings as established by the testimony here tonight. And in addition, make these following determinations.
Okay, so board, I turn to you again with this question. Is there evidence of change in the neighborhood to justify a rezoning?
Yes.
Okay, yes, I would say that in my opinion, it would be based on population growth, the completion of the neighborhood, and the possibility of basically that partnership we've discussed. Okay, next item, board. Is there evidence of legal mistake sufficient to justify a rezoning? Do we feel compelled to correct an error from the past?
Yes, if we look at it, the sense of the comprehensive plan that was developed back in the mid 2000s, I think the intent was wonderful at that time. However, as we saw, nothing happened with the commercial development. If we look at it that stance.
Is that the nature of a mistake that qualifies?
That is the nature of the legal
Okay,
mistake. And
terrific.
then you just address whether the, you know, other evidence presented supports such a determination that would make it a reasonable thing to do in terms of rezoning.
Okay. So do we feel it's reasonable to change the zoning based on population change?
Yes.
Okay, do we feel it's reasonable to change zoning based on availability of public facilities? Do we have the means to meet the needs of the development, for example, or the addition to the development?
Sure.
Okay, all right, next criteria. Do we have the means? Do we feel there's a sufficient change related to present and future transportation patterns that this development would be, this addition would be appropriate?
Yes.
Yeah. Basically, the issue there is whether or not it would adversely impact transportation patterns. And I think that it's
Okay.
no, yeah.
All right. Do we feel that compatibility with existing and proposed development for the area and the relationship of such proposed amendment to the town's comprehensive plan? So do we feel a change is necessary based on it agreeing with the comprehensive plan as was laid out? I'm seeking a clarification here, so I'll come.
Oh,
back to
I'm
you.
sorry.
That's all right. So I'm trying to decipher compatibility with existing and proposed development for the area and the relationship of such proposed amendment to the town's comprehensive plan.
Okay, so with respect to the first prong of that question, the question before the board is the proposed change in zoning compatible with what's existing there now in that area?
Yeah. So compatibility exists. We can, do we agree with that piece?
Sure.
Okay, all right.
Okay, and then with respect to whether or not it materially affects the town's comprehensive plan, that would be in an adverse way or a positive way or no impact whatsoever, which so you may be in category C.
Does the change materially, sorry, does adding these homes by changing the zoning materially change the town in our comprehensive plan? Okay, so we don't change the nature of our community by adding these households.
No.
Okay, very good. All right. With this in mind, Ms. Powell,
Yes, sir.
we want to modify the proposal that was made a few moments ago. So does this satisfy it? I mean, this was through discussion, it seems, because the motion was made and it was seconded.
Right, but you haven't had a vote on your motion.
Correct.
So
No, no, no.
these findings would be then incorporated in the motion that would be made. And I think that you've already discussed the fact that no retail development has occurred there over 18 years. I think that's been a long time
Right.
to determine whether or not such a thing was viable. You've addressed the fact that there's a small population that is insufficient to drive further commercial development. You've talked about the lack of visibility from major roadways. I don't know if you have addressed the fact that, you know, the development on the east side is something that makes development in this area less likely.
I think we discussed that.
I think
at
that was,
length
that
a
was.
couple
Are you-
times, yeah.
You're good with
put
that?
forward at least,
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Davis even talked about it with Tony Town and Thermont.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So if that's part of your findings, then that's good. And then let's
Do we need to modify the motion though?
The
or by
motion?
Having these discussions? Okay, very good.
No, the motion doesn't, no, the motion is to, as I understand it, the motion before the board is to approve the applicant's request for rezoning of parcels C and D from B1 to R1, based on the factual findings made by the board.
Okay, I'm looking at the front page and E is listed in the second to last line on item number 1. I can walk it over if you want. It's a
Oh,
plat reference. It's not the.
It's a plat reference. It's not part
okay,
of the
So
request.
we're not bound by that. No, very good. All right.
No, it's just a reference to the name of the plat.
So to clarify, so you know, I'm kind
Sure.
of touchy. I want to make sure that we get this correct because I don't want the I's and the T's uncrossed and therefore
Absolutely.
we're.
That's why we're going through
in
this
good standing.
process.
Okay, very good. All right, so the motion's been made, the motion's been seconded. We have provided sufficient content to address the elements as put in front of us. Is there any further discussion from the board?
No, just to give you another 2 examples, is I think the town saw this happening, not the extra houses, but the property or the businesses section being in the east end of town by adding the sidewalks where people can walk now from one end of town to the other, and by opening other roadways to allow for easier travel for people to get to the east end of town. So I think we saw that coming. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? So all in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye.
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 Aye. Anyone against?
Aye.
Sorry, sir.
Aye.
Anyone against? The motion carries 5-0 with all commissioners present. My apologies, sir. We now turn to our next agenda item. Thank you all for coming in. Appreciate you weighing in.
And can I just address Ms. Wahlbecker one more time on a comment she made?
Yes.
Yeah, real quick. I agree with you 100% about the cheaper housing and the senior housing. I've been discussion with the mayor and staff about that, because you're right, our children can't stay here and our seniors can't stay here. And so I really, I'm right with you on that, so.
And actually, Mr. President, but this is going to be directed to town staff, but they're
Yes,
available
hold
right
on,
now.
please, hold on. I tell you what, we can either recess or we can move forward. Board, I'd prefer we continue to move forward.
Yes, I want to get through.
Sure.
Okay, second half. So, all right,
Get more.
all right, very good.
Can I
So
just,
then,
can I
yes,
just throw in some?
Mr.
So
Rich, with that in mind.
this is directed to town staff, and I know by law, we publicized this hearing this evening. You know, we had to put up a sign at the physical location. We put on our website, which we did.
Yes.
This ties into something that I've been harping on for a while, though. When we use the, I don't want to say the legal terms, what we do, you know, it's, you know, plat this and lot this and whatnot. I think that's great putting that on there, but even if we put, is there a possibility just to put a summary, you know, explaining a brief summary, because Ms. Walbrecker touched on this, and this is something that I've been talking about for a while too. When people read that, I know we're doing what we need to do. We're meeting the requirements. But a lot of times people read it and they're like, what's that? So yes, they can call town office. Maybe they don't want to, you know, if it was just a quick little blurb explaining what it was, they'd be like, hey, you know, that makes total sense. That's something I'm very interested in. I'm going to go, or nah, that doesn't pertain to me. I'm looking at you. Sorry, Zach. I'm Kathy's. Sorry, Miss Wells is usually sitting there, but.
We have been putting it on the website, adding extra information. I don't know that it was done for this particular agenda item.
It was not.
But we have been doing it.
Okay.
Since it was requested, I guess, several meetings ago. But you know, obviously we can always do better and we can always improve. So we'll continue to strive to it.
I think a lot of residents would appreciate that, you know,
For the press too.
it goes over my head. I mean, so it's, you know, a lot of the wording it can be confusing. You know, what exactly are you guys talking about? You know. I'm
Mr.
done.
Sweeney.
Yeah,
Thanks, sir.
since we can continue on that, since we're agreed to put the 7 other houses there, and we're going to up this the school population. It would help with our 2 ladies here who are covering this to maybe put something in their paper, in the Frederick and paper on them about having the Emmitsburg community itself, not just Emmitsburg itself, but our community goes out a good way, to put some pressure on the Board of Education to get our school work done on our school. If you could put something in, you know, rebuilt or added on to, or get rid of the portables, but it'd be nice if they can see it in the paper that we need, you know, go to the school, call the school board, all the citizens in Emmitsburg or in the northern part of the county here, and tell them we need help with getting our school repaired. That's all the help we can get.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you
Thank
make
you, Mr.
that
Sweeney.
happen, we'll name the gymnasium after.
And we move forward. Is that okay, gentlemen? We're okay?
Please.
All right.
Yeah.
So,
But I'm good. I'm big time.
all right. So we turn to agenda item. Hold on for a second, folks.
Number 3,
This is number 3. Yeah. Okay. Very good.
we haven't moved
Uh,
far.
Yeah, we have not. Okay, so I'm on page 54 of 76. Approval of abandonment of sewer easement located at the Emmitsburg East Industrial Park 2 property for consideration.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. I apologize. I didn't add the correct map to the meeting room computer. However, we can still see it on this. Ms. Nail can, actually, that's fine. Yep. So there is, you can see it better in your agenda packet. There is a 20-foot wide sanitary sewer line easement shown in blue in your meeting packet. I apologize for those looking at home. It's the, looks like an L shape going towards from the cul-de-sac over to the wastewater treatment plant property. Federal Stone has purchased this property from Mr. Reaver, and they are asking that the town abandon this 12-foot sewer line easement. Yeah, that is it. Yes, exactly. Yep. So when the sewer plant was constructed, the new sewer plant was constructed, this was abandoned. We no longer need it. And the Federal Stone is looking to potentially develop the northern property at some point. So they are asking for us to abandon it. Staff, we spoke with Mr. Fissel, and he has agreed that it's not necessary to have anymore. So we would recommend approval of this.
Any further questions any questions for staff related to this item?
I'll make a motion. We accept staff recommendation. Hope you have a question.
Mr. Ritz.
You gotta be quicker than that after 10 o'clock. You gotta move on.
We abandon it, just sits abandoned. It's not like digging it up and paying money to take care of that, right?
It's, yeah.
There's nothing there to dig up. It was never used. And so what will happen mechanically speaking is that basically a declaration of abandonment will be filed in the land records. And then at such time as they decide to do something else or put something somewhere else, then they'll come back to this board. And as a matter of course, anytime you develop property, these types of easements have to be reviewed and approved.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Very good.
I'm sorry.
Any other questions before we seek a motion?
Did he make the motion?
You did, but I want to make sure we have all the questions addressed.
I apologize.
Because I'll make the second now.
All right. So is there a second, Mr. Ritz, for Mr. Davis's motion?
Yes, I second.
Sir. All right. The motion has been made by Commissioner Davis. It's been seconded by Commissioner Ritz. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you. We move on to agenda item number 4. I turn to page 55 of 76. Town of Emmitsburg participation in the Maryland Low Income Household Water Assistance Program, LIHWAP, for consideration. We're going to give staff a moment to reconfigure in the dais. Sure.
We thought you were sneaking out.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you.
Have some.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay, very good. So we now turn to staff related to the participation in the Maryland Low Income Household Water Assistance Program.
Right. So this is a new program. It's a new federally funded grant program that provides benefits for water and or wastewater costs for low income housing or households. They sent information to myself and our water department sharing the information about this program. The funding comes through the American Rescue Plan and developed in response to COVID-19. It's currently funded only through December of 2023. What does the low income household water assistance program look like? It's Maryland's allocation is about $14 million. The Maryland state approved was approved on September 27th of 2021. Maryland basically will focus on immediate restoration of water and or wastewater services and the payment of arrearages to prevent disconnection of service. The program will be administered by the local Department of Social Services. Who's eligible and what are the eligibility requirements? Basically, you have to be a Maryland resident who is responsible for your water and or wastewater bill. You have to submit proof of residency. You must live at the property, and applicants must submit a current water or wastewater bill showing accrued past due amounts of at least $100, and the total household income may not exceed the gross income threshold, which is 60% of the state median income, and only one bill account per service address per utility for the water and sewer. It's basically a one-time grant of $100 to $2,000 that can be paid toward residential water and or wastewater accounts that have accumulated past due amounts. Benefit payment amount must satisfy the account to be in good standing with the utility provider. So in essence, a resident in town who has a past due water amount in excess of $100, who is in danger of having their water shut off or their water has been shut off, can apply to the local Department of Social Services for a grant to have them pay their bill directly to the town of Emmitsburg. Applicants are first come, first served in each county. Again, benefits must be paid directly to the utility supplier. Renters are eligible if they are responsible for paying their water and sewer bill, or their water wastewater is included in their rent. However, if the bill is in the landlord's name, which is required by the town of Emmitsburg, the landlord has to comply with providing the account information and willing to deduct the rent for the portion of the bill that's being charged. It's not an ongoing program, as I mentioned. The funding is only good through December of 2023. How do you apply? An application can be submitted with or without an energy assistance application through the Office of Home Energy Programs. If this is something the board wants to do, obviously we will put all the information up on our website, include it on Facebook, also include it in any upcoming newsletters. Basically, to participate, the town has to complete a memorandum of agreement or a memorandum of understanding with a contract affidavit. We have to supply them with a W-9 form and just some basic information about the utility that is provided. It is at no cost to the town, and it's a benefit to anybody that is struggling with paying their water and or sewer bill.
Is there a step we can also take basically by identifying those who are in this circumstance, not necessarily income wise, but in arrearage to the town, where we've got a list, basically a punch list of those who are in danger of being shut off, and we can contact them directly and say, here's an opportunity you should consider.
So they have to apply directly themselves. We cannot apply on their behalf.
Sure.
But it's certainly something I would
Can we
hope
call them?
they could
That's-
have a
that's-
flyer that is sent with their past due amount, or it's included in the newsletter. Obviously, it's put them information, and this will be my plug. Get your phone number to Reese Fryer, because many people do not have phone numbers on their bills and we
Okay.
cannot contact them.
Okay. All right.
And it is a huge problem when we try to reach out that
Okay.
we do not have current phone numbers.
Okay.
So that's my plug.
Can we do a postcard directly to them and say, here's an opportunity?
Well, when you get your past due notice, we can include the information in it. So if your bill's due on May 5th, past due notices go out on May 6th. Once we're enrolled in the program, then we can send the information out and include it with your past due notice.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Sir.
has anyone talked to Seton Center yet? Don't they provide services like helping individuals fill out forms and things of that nature?
I'm not familiar. I know people do contact Seton Center to
Yes.
get assistance with their bills.
Yes, they
So-
do. They have different programs to even
Mhm.
teach people how to pay bills online and things like that. So they do have those programs.
We might want to talk to them as well. What is the local Department of Social Services? Is that at the county level?
Yes, that would be
Okay.
located in Frederick.
Okay.
So can only be a good thing for our citizens and no hindrance to the town.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Any
Yes.
questions quick?
Nope.
I make a motion to accept the low income grant.
Is there a second for Mr. Sweeney's?
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Sweeney. It's been seconded by Commissioner Burns. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. The motion carries 5-0. I have taught you well, young Skywalker. Huh? All right, we can move on.
Oh, wow.
Agenda item number 5, we are on page 59 of 76.
All right.
Page 59 of 76.
I've invited Ms. Shaw, who has worked tirelessly on this program and was very successful in her grant writing to obtain full funding for our project with minimal assistance. So I've invited her to present this item and feel free to ask either her or myself any questions.
Okay, so approval of bid for the purchase and installation of advanced license plate readers for consideration. Good evening, Ms. Shaw.
Hi, good evening.
Welcome back.
Thanks. Yeah, all right. So I'm going to present the bid information and staff recommendation, and Sergeant Keith Johnson, he is on Zoom right now. He is with the Maryland State Police and the Maryland Coordination and Analysis Center. So these license plate readers will be connected to the state system, and that's how they'll flag like hot list vehicles and wanted vehicles, whatnot. And he can answer any questions you have about that. So the proposed project would be to add 3 fixed location advanced license plate readers to town at 3 different locations. There would be one on East Main Street near East North Avenue, catching westbound traffic, one on West Main Street near Worthen's Court, catching eastbound traffic, and then one on South Seaton Avenue near Pizza Hut, catching southbound traffic. It should be noted that these are not speed enforcement cameras. They are just capturing license plates to get wanted vehicles. Let's see. So regarding the bids, the first bid was put out on February 4th with a due date of March 2nd, and that was just for 3 ALPRs. Myself, Ms. Willits, and Mr. Click opened them. We had 4 total bids received. Due to the bids being lower than we anticipated, town staff decided to put a new bid out that would feature the 3 ALPRs and 3 surveillance cameras. So the second bid was put out then on March 10th and with a due date of March 31st. Again, Ms. Willits, myself, and Mr. Quick opened them. In total, we received 3 bids. Both bid tabulations are listed in the agenda packet. Upon reviewing the first and second bid results and consulting with Sergeant Johnson, town staff is recommending Applied Technology Services for $42,140.19, and that is from the first bid. We are recommending them because they had good references, and also their proposed ELSAG software is the only connection to the Maryland State Police system at this time. In the bid packet, you will find a map of the proposed locations, both bid tabulations, Public Safety Article 3-509, which is the law on how they can be used, and the standard operating procedures the state has for their readers. Are there any questions?
Just one, given the location of the one on Main Street for westbound traffic and the one on South Seaton and their proximity to the schools, is there the possibility in the future that they could be converted to speed cameras?
So the only one, I've had a couple conversations with Sam DeLawrence with State Highway. The one on South Seaton Avenue would be able to have a speed camera attached to it. He did not give me a definitive answer for the one on East Main Street. Not sure it meets the criteria. He didn't roll it out.
Right, I know it's based on the proximity of the location to a school.
Right, plus direct route of travel. So he didn't rule that one out. South Seaton is definite. I'll give a little background. The trouble the town is going to have is who's going to monitor them. We didn't get much support, but I know there's ways around it. Talking to other town managers. Hope that answers your question.
Clarify, not much support from whom?
So the sheriff will not support speed cameras.
Okay,
So
okay,
we
all right,
wouldn't have,
okay.
we would not have the ability to
Apples and
have them monitored. However, there are other departments that may be willing to do it.
Okay.
If we decide to go that route.
Okay, others being, for example, the Maryland State Police or?
I know at this time, the town of Newmarket is utilizing Frederick City.
Okay, right.
To do their speed cameras and run their system for there.
Okay. Other questions? Thank you. Thank you.
I have
Mr.
two questions for Ms. Shaw. The recommended vendor, the Applied Technology Services, you said they were the only ones that had something to do with the Maryland State Police computer system. But what was that again?
So their software is the only one that's compatible with the Maryland State Police system. Sergeant Johnson, he can explain more. It's just what we were informed about. So currently, how I understand it is when there's like a vehicle that goes by and it records the data from their plate, it sends it back to the Maryland State Police system, and they access it through this system called ELSAG. So some of these other vendors were proposing systems that basically weren't compatible with what the Maryland State Police go through to get the information. So it would kind of inhibit the features and the information that and the data flow.
That was my next part of the question was if we go with somebody that doesn't have that software connection, then what? what's the point then of using it? I mean, you see what I'm getting at? No, you want to
Yeah,
say
oh,
that better
yeah.
for me?
Well, if it's not going to
No, it
report to
makes
the
sense.
system,
Then
it's
what's
not going to do us any good.
correct?
It's going to go in a garbage can instead of going into the refrigerator.
Accessible database, right?
Right.
Refrigerator, phone, yeah.
Yeah,
Data
but was that part of the specification that it had to be compatible with the state police?
I don't know that it was specific in the request for proposal, no. And in discussions, from what I understand, is if you choose a different vendor, it doesn't necessarily mean that the system can't be used. It will hinder the support that we can receive from the Maryland State Police, and the flow of information may be slower, and they may have to train additional personnel to run different systems. And obviously, we want as much support as possible.
Okay.
And another, I mean, another reason that, we went with the Applied Technology Services is this is something they do a lot of, and they had a lot of references and a lot of favorable references. And we're very familiar with Maryland and the systems that Maryland uses, as opposed to other systems out of state. And the other vendor in Maryland does not have any systems in the state of Maryland as of right now.
Oh.
So there was nowhere to reach out to see how it worked. If that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
So my question kind of goes in a different direction. It's not related to the bidding piece, but to the actual application piece. I've seen over the border, our cousins in Pennsylvania have lost their bank. They've moved out of the area. I know that there's been a reduction in retail in Carroll Valley and in Fairfield. And the one side says that this could be, help sort of as a safety net to identify people who are bad actors and try to hold up a place and therefore identify them. But I also remember our PNC bank robbery where we had nothing that helped us identify who did it or where they went after they did it. Are we trying to address that gap to provide a layer of protection for our retail as well as our community, or what motivated this? I guess that's where I'm really going.
So what motivated it was one, talking to the deputies, and the town of Boonesborough utilizes tag readers. And in speaking with them, that they've had a lot of success with solving crimes that occur not only in their community, but crimes that are occurring around their area. And it's not only to fill that gap. If you remember the robbery at the old Rudder store, had we had a tag reader, that would have been solved.
Sure.
I just spoke to Deputy Ahalt because he had to leave. I asked him, I said, what do you think? And he has 3 investigations he's working on that he said the tag readers would help him solve those as well. But you're also, it's a crime reduction. We're in the close proximity to Camp David, to Site R. You're right near the state lines. 140 is a known drug route. It's to help the deputies. It's additional tool that they have in their toolbox to assist them, as well as help protect the community.
And do the deputies get access from the state police? Will the state police make it available to them?
Yes, it's my understanding that the deputies will have access to it.
Okay.
Correct, Mr. Manning?
Does that sound correct? Okay.
Can I clarify that for you guys?
Yes, please.
This is
Good
Detective
evening.
Sergeant Johnson with the Maryland State Police. So this system is actually not the Maryland State Police, to be clear. It's part of MCAC. It's a separate entity. It's a fusion center. So with the current bid, the way it looks is that you guys would have a server on site that looks like it would actually, under the state law, have to be the Frederick County Sheriff's Office's server, because the data is restricted to law enforcement use. If you guys have a server in place, the program through LSAG, or the companies, they go by Leonardo now, but the software allows you to use a program that, even with these fixed sites, through the connection, your deputies in the car, as long as they can access that server, there's a program they can use, dispatcher. They would get alarms for drivers who were suspended, drivers who were revoked. They would get pickup orders for insurance violations, wanted persons. Also have the ability, and we talk about your investigations, to put local entries in or entries in for investigative purposes. So if you had an issue with a particular tag where one of the investigators working for you said, I think this tag's involved within crime, you put that tag in through MCAC, and we actually put it out statewide. So throughout the state, you could actually get information back saying, hey, this vehicle is traveling between Baltimore City and Emmitsburg. Unfortunately, we don't reach outside of the state because of the way the state law is written. But that ability to share that data, part of that statewide system, is impactful. And talk about cases, the Baltimore City officer who was shot and killed earlier this year, we located that vehicle within very quickly at the scene of the homicide and en route to the other homicide. And we put it together. They had that information within about 45 minutes of contacting us. We were able to give them a vehicle to look for that they confirmed their suspicion. So with the statewide system right now, you're looking at connection to getting data from over 540 LPRs throughout the state. Last year, we collected a total of 662 million, almost 663 million reads throughout the state. That as part of the MCAC, if you're part of a contributor, is you request that data, we put it together and give you back all that data. So again, if a vehicle is traveling from Baltimore City or Baltimore County back into your jurisdiction, you get that information. If it drives through Frederick City and it hits one of their 10 LPRs, you would get that information. If it passed one of our troopers out there, you would get that information. So for you guys, the advantage of having a server is access to dispatcher. And the whole purpose behind that is it's really network security issues where a lot of ITs don't like to talk together. We're trying to move away from having that need, but for now, you still need to have that server to get that instant access. If you want to be proactive, and it sounds like there's some idea to be proactive with it, I would recommend a server. If it's a reactive, you don't need the server because we have a process where we give you that data and give you a complete picture.
Thank you. So related to fees and server location, does the police server, the Frederick County Sheriff's Office server, have to be on a Frederick County Sheriff's Office property? Or is it in county infrastructure, like somewhere secure in a building? Or where is that cited so it's not vulnerable? I'm assuming it's not in a box on the street. It's really, someone's not backing a truck into it and saying, hey, we're done.
So traditionally, the servers are maintained by the law enforcement agencies, wherever their IT maintains them. So Frederick County would probably have a server located at their office traditionally.
They have one at 22 East Main Street.
Right.
Okay,
And that would
so-
be the perfect location for it.
So the other side of it though, fees. I mean, what's the fee for having this data evaluated? Like it hits a filter through dispatcher, it sounds like, and dispatcher, hits the algorithm and shoots out the data as needed. What are we paying for that service once we have the product of the reader?
Through MCAC, we do not charge any fees. When you're part of the MCAC program, I have a technician who, one of the gentlemen here, Jim Craig, is from LSAG. He hates to hear this, but we provide a lot of services to you that you would traditionally pay for through anybody else. We go out, we do minor repairs to systems, we troubleshoot systems for you. So if something goes down, we normally come out for free. And I actually have a guy who lives out in Hagerstown, so he's pretty close to you guys. He covers that region. So that service is free. Request for data is free as long as it's a law enforcement agency. That's all we release to. So the data has to be used for legitimate law enforcement purpose. And as long as you have that reason, we release the data to you. Last year, we made 5,123 requests for services were entertained by MCAC and processed. So our guys are very used to doing that. We have a staff of 24/7 working, provide
So
support
when
on
you
that
say
side.
your guys, do you mean support vendors or do you actually mean sworn officers, law enforcement officers?
So the technician side or the LPR section, my section, are all sworn individuals. Civilian wise, we do have, well, the 24/7 is manned by sworn personnel from multiple agencies who are stationed out of our office. And then we have an additional section of civilians who provide you additional services to the law enforcement agencies for long drawn out cases. So again, just LPR related, over 5,000 requests for services came in, and we process them between the civilians or the, what we call it, the watch. They're the 1-800 tips line. If you see something, say something. That's manned by law enforcement 24/7. They take the initial request when it comes in by phone or by email, and they start processing it. Anything that's drawn out, a long-term investigation, we have an additional section that's fully staffed that handles those requests.
Are there
And
any
that's-
fees? Are there any fees the town would see for storage or maintenance of equipment or replacement of equipment? Do we pay for the insurance when an electronic device fails or one of our school kids chooses to vandalize a box on a street? How does that get managed?
You would pay for the repairs for that, unless there was a warranty issue with it. There is a warranty. I've been doing this since 2016. We've had one issue with a trailer being damaged, but our fixed sites, we had a fixed site in the heart of Baltimore City during the riots that survived. And when I mean the heart, the CVS that burned, I have an LPR camera right there and it survived. Very reliable equipment. Shelf life is supposed to be 5 to 7 years for the equipment. Fixed sites, I have one site that was put in place in 2012, it looks like, is still in service. So we're at 14 years using the same equipment.
And data storage fees?
If you maintain your own server, there is no debt. You would pay to upkeep that server. So your life expectancy on the server, our server we've just replaced. For the data that comes to MCAC, again, we don't charge you for anything. If you keep it locally, which we would recommend less than a year, even if you wanted a smaller server, we would recommend maybe keep it for 14 days. Like the Maryland Transportation Authority keeps their data for 14 days, but because it's transmitted to us, after that, they delete it. So they have a smaller server. So if you had a small server that gave you 14 days, it would be that amount of data you would have to keep. And I haven't seen any traffic studies, so I don't know your amount of traffic. But an agency, I can tell you Harper County, which has some fixed sites and some mobile sites, they get 13 million reads a year compared to MDTA, who had 279 million reads last year.
So if Frederick County Sheriff's Office is holding it, this is for staff. If Frederick County Sheriff's Office is holding the server, is it likely that they would charge us a fee to hold the data for some set period of time?
No,
No.
no.
Okay. And do they have a set policy regarding how long the data is held on their end? Or do we set that policy based on it being from our community?
I don't know the answer to that one.
Wouldn't it be ours because we paid for it? It'll be our server,
Right,
but they'll be stationed in their office.
right.
We
No,
have a
but-
sheriff's office here, so it'll be inside.
But what I'm saying is, how long do we hold that data?
He said to hold it for a year and then
That'll be determined on the size of the server that we decide to use.
So, but do we
You
know-
cannot exceed a year.
You can't, yeah.
with the
Can't go past a
agreement.
year.
All right. Okay. So that's our boundary. Okay.
Mr. President,
Sir.
I have a question for Sergeant.
Yes, sir.
There's been some chatter in town regarding data encryption, like the viability of the data captured at these readers as it's transmitted to the server. Could you speak to that?
So the data, when it's sent out through, and again, we deal with the LSAG program, the mobile plate hunters or the fixed sites. That information, when it's transmitted, is done through an encrypted file that is a proprietary software. We have not had data breached from us at all throughout our process, and that's part of our audit process as we go through there. What you get on the images, so you get an image of the plate, the location, which would be with fixed sites, would always be the same. Well, we get images of the tags is the goal. So fixed site, you would see an overview of the vehicle with a color picture, black and white picture. But we don't transmit. There's no transmission of a person's personal identifiable information. If you want to consider the tag personal identifiable information, yes, the tag information is sent over. But the data is encrypted and the data is protected in the closed network with limited access to that data. One issue you will get from people in the community is people are concerned with the big brother. And that's part of the MCAC process. We do not, if you were to call up, if a police officer calls and asks for data, we ask them for a case number. We ask them for what the crime is. And then we tell them, what is your law enforcement email address? That's the only place we'll send information to. We do reject queries all the time, and we actually audit the queries. And when we say audit, that out of these requests, I have to do at least 1% of every request comes in, that the person who requested it randomly has to submit a copy of the actual report or a letter signed by their chief, sheriff, or a designated representative saying that they actually had a legitimate law enforcement purpose to request that data. So we take the security of the data seriously. The program actually has an audit trail. It tells you who accessed the data, when they accessed it, and how they accessed it, and which way they queried it.
Thank you. You answered my question and then some. So thank you. Sorry, I'm so close to my mic.
Any other questions?
Yeah, well, I just got something for staff. I see that the Pine Hill Electronics bid, and they do a lot of our other work, and they've done work around town for forever. And but their product just won't do what we need it to do. Is that what?
So they're the ones that have not utilized this product anywhere in the state of Maryland. I think we reached out to only two. One was Minnesota.
I think the other was Wisconsin.
And those are the only two places that we found that had utilized their system. So I don't think we wanted somebody that was well recognized and had the system used in Maryland and is familiar with what Maryland requires. But we are going to still move forward with our surveillance camera purchases, and we'll be looking at Pine Hill.
And the only other question I had, I see we're only tracking vehicles going one way. Is there a reason for that?
So the map was developed off of recommendations from the deputies on what they felt was best suited for their needs.
Okay. So Sergeant, can you address that one? Our cameras are only going to track one way. Is that good, bad? Is that what most of them do?
So I looked a little bit at your locations on a map. I think to start with, if that's your start, that's not bad. The systems can be expanded. We traditionally like intersections. Unless it's a one-way street, we cover every intersection. Part of that reason becomes if you have a road closure and you for some reason divert traffic the opposite way, you may miss the reader. So we do MDTA, for instance, does front and rear tags of every vehicle that crosses through a tunnel or in critical infrastructure. I mean, if you had the funding, I would look at it. I saw East Main Street, the extension at Sow Hill Road. My question, it looks like you have infrastructure in place already because there's power. I saw street lamps in the area. West Main Street at, sorry if I get it wrong, Fraley?
Right, you got it.
Okay. I see a light in the area, so there's power. And then you have West Main Street at Business 15. I think that's one, when I look at it, the central hub, you may look at that one of having cameras in all directions.
So to answer your question, Commissioner Davis, they're going on the last light pole on East Main and West Main Street. So we went out as far as we possibly could for those. And the same thing with South Seaton. And I agree completely, the intersection at Silo Hill and East Main Street. However, we didn't have any light poles out there for power. That is a location that we're looking at a 360 surveillance camera.
Yeah, because it looks like if you
Yeah.
want to rob the bank, go east. Yeah, really. I mean, Well, they're gonna figure it out. They're gonna figure it out.
So,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
Maryland law requires front and rear tags.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna head east, the westbound one is gonna capture you because you have a front tag.
If you're from Maryland.
If you're from Maryland,
Right.
you know,
I just want-
this is a starting point. Obviously, we can add on as we go. And, you know, like I said, these were input from our deputies where they felt they were best. They're not set in stone. They don't have to be here, but we have to put them on the light pole so that we can have power to them.
Okay.
And have a structure to put them on.
In a 3-year process, Applied Technology will deal with Leonardo, who does business as LSAG and LPR. They will come out. Jim Craig would send somebody out here. Most likely you would get a couple of guys I deal with all the time will be able to come out and they'll look at it. They'll look at your infrastructure because you will do load balance testings on the physical sites. Just to make sure that the structure can handle it with the wind and everything. Anything else you have. And then they'll look at sites and again, I only look at it from a map. I think the farthest I've been in that area is to Camp David because my unit covers that every time a visitor's there. So I don't have intimate knowledge of your community. Utilizing what the deputies know best is always a good start, without a doubt. I look at it from a 360, I look at it on a map and just from some previous experience we've had where we've missed stuff. But adding cameras is not as expensive as the initial infrastructure. And traditionally, if you have to add another camera, you're running a wire to it, up to it, and the infrastructure you have in place on the field patrol unit will actually already be able to capable of handling it. We're able to use the same field unit to cover 95 sites, which is our heavy traffic, and we cover the Bay Bridge with them. And some areas, again, you saw MDTA, they provide about 60% of the data. It's the same infrastructure, so you have the ability to add cameras and not have to worry about the hardware outside of adding cameras.
I'm okay with everything, except I wish we could do both ways because we're not catching anybody leaving town. If you have a Pennsylvania car leaving town, we're not going to get them.
Correct. Maybe we
Or am I
can
missing
around.
something? Am I missing something?
Like I said, we were just going off what the deputies recommended. If this Applied Technologies, they come out and they take a look at where and I think they did come out, didn't they? Or we sent them just the map.
They looked at Google Street View.
Okay. So
Okay.
we're not, these are proposed locations where you see.
Yeah, I think the locations are fine. If we could, I'm just concerned.
Let's refine
Is
the
it-
use of the camera.
So it, the call, I mean, if you're gonna get, from what I understand, it would be 2 cameras then on each pole. Is that correct? To get
Both directions.
both directions?
I believe they would have to have it on a streetlight pole across the street because
That's right.
the vehicle is going in the one direction wouldn't interfere with the camera images.
So
Okay.
this is a start.
So therefore, is there a motion related to?
I'll make a motion to accept the bid by Applied Technology Services for the license plate readers. We have to do 2 or 1.
I second it.
Hold on. As well, we do both at the same time or 1 at a time.
What was the question? I'm terribly sorry.
So we have to do Applied Technologies by itself and Pine Hill
No, we're just doing the Applied Technologies. We'll have to come back with the bids for the surveillance cameras,
Okay.
actually.
make a motion to accept the bid by Applied Technology Services in the amount of $42,140.19 with the battery power as well.
Yes. Just the 24/7 power,
Okay.
just 24/7 power.
Excluding the battery power.
Right.
Second.
There's been a motion made by Commissioner Burns and seconded by Commissioner Sweeney. Is there any further discussion? I would just add, when the items are cited it would be best if the vendor and the monitoring group, like the state police, are on site to determine the best direction for the camera.
Yeah, obviously, we will defer to the contractor and our law enforcement on the
Okay,
best location. And that's what we did when we applied for the grant.
Okay, just to have them in the conversation with the deputies, everybody,
We-
but everybody on site, not just Google Maps, because I don't think that's sufficient to get a sense as to,
Well, yeah, I believe he said they'd send somebody out.
yeah. I
Yes.
just want to make sure that happens. Very good. Okay, so. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody against?
Aye.
I'm actually voting nay. I like the intent. I'm a little concerned with the camera issue. I think we're putting these up and I don't know how beneficial they might be, even if it's just a start. I think we need a bigger package if we're going to proceed.
Understood. The motion carries 4-1. Commissioner Ritz against, Commissioners Burns, O'Donnell, Sweeney, Davis in favor. Okay, we turn to our last agenda item. That is on page 75 of 76. Agenda item number 6,
Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
approval of change order with MIM Construction fiscal year 21 sidewalk accessibility ramps fiscal year 21 contract 21-SA-21, the amount of $62,864.50 for consideration.
Yes, as the mayor stated earlier, we were awarded a large grant. It was 685,000 some change to construct. We ended up doing 122 of the curb ramps throughout town. We were $103,386.25 under budget, which hardly ever happens through our grant. So we are looking at spending all of our grant funds. So we need approval to use the funds of $62,864.50, which is in excess of the first contract, which you approved at a previous meeting with MIM Construction. So we're just looking for that approval.
To construct what, for clarification?
We're looking at projects on East Main Street from Creamery Road. I'm sorry. Creamery Road, excuse me, East Main Street along Creamery Road, along the Sloan property. Also South Seaton Avenue, Mountaineers Way connector on Cedar Avenue. So we're gonna connect South Seaton Avenue to Southgate on Cedar Avenue. There's currently a swale there now. We're filling that in. You
So we're
approve?
building sidewalks.
Yes,
Okay. great.
ADA sidewalks. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And
Right.
also DePaul Street, we're looking at improving sidewalks. So
Okay.
Making them ADA accessible.
Terrific. So new sidewalks in the unsidewalked areas for DePaul Street, replacing damaged sidewalks where the tree. roots have-
Potentially.
Potentially.
Potentially. DePaul Street's the third on our list. The mayor's recommendation with staff was East Main Street first.
Okay.
Second would be South Seaton Avenue. And then if
Okay.
any money is left over, DePaul Street. However, we need to finish some items with Creamery Road. We found out we do not have a right of way. So we need to work with Mr. Sloan to get that right away.
And
Okay.
I think the Paul Street, the church is working on replacing sidewalks also. I know they just had a fundraiser to raise money to replace the sidewalks on, I guess, on both sides where the church owns.
Well, they are currently ADA accessible. So that's why we
They're
didn't.
gonna do a lot of curb and sidewalk replacements. So they'll have to come see you anyways, probably, correct?
Yeah, yeah, but that's not on our priority list since
Right.
it's already accessible. It has to be ADA related in order for the grant to pay for
To
it.
qualify for the grant.
Yes.
Okay. A question related to DePaul Street. If in the near future, our grants are satisfied for the water lines and the wastewater lines, just water lines, pardon me.
Water lines.
Will that impact the sidewalks, the new sidewalks that are being built? We'll be able to tunnel under them, literally. I mean,
Yeah, we're not replacing the lateral lines, which would be under the sidewalks. We're
Okay.
just placing the main line.
You
So
will
that's the
have to
main line.
replace the ones under the sidewalks.
All the laterals too.
You'll have to,
I
they'll
would
have to
think-
replace the fire lines. Because most of the fire hydrants on that side of the town don't work.
Okay.
So they'll have to replace them.
Yeah, so if we get the East Main Street approval through Mr. Sloan, that's gonna take the majority of the money.
Okay,
So we'll be lucky to get the South Seaton Avenue one as well,
so DePaul Street's down
on the bottom of the
tier
list.
4,
Tier 3.
tier 3. Very good. Okay. Okay. So for absolute clarification, we're not talking about accessibility ramps, we're talking about full sidewalks and ramps. Is that
Correct.
correct? Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept or rather to approve the change order? Is that what we're looking for?
Approve the change order. Yep.
Okay,
I so move.
thank you, sir. Is there a second for Commissioner Sweeney's motion?
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Sweeney, seconded by Commissioner Ritz. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Anybody against? The motion carries 5-0. Thank you. We now turn to staff for the agenda items for our next meeting in May.
All right. So for the May 2nd Board of Commissioner meetings, I have 6 items. Number 1 will be the initial presentation of the fiscal year 2023 budget. Number 2 will be review and approval of St. Euphemia's Wayside exhibit for consideration. Number 3 is related to the agenda item from tonight. Approval of ordinance 2022-01, which will incorporate the board's findings. Motion and vote will be presented in writing to board for approval and execution.
This is the one related to Brookfield,
Okay.
correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Number 4, approval of policy P 22-02, update to parking fees and fines for consideration. Number 5, approval of ordinance 2022-02, update to Title 10, parking for consideration. And number 6, Planning Commission, forward proposed ordinance 2022-03, zoning text amendment to chapter 1704, 1720, and 1744 to the Planning Commission and set public hearing for June 6th, 2022. And that would be May 2nd.
No administrative?
No, looking at number 6 may need to be postponed depending on the status of the budget, because the priority for June 6th will be passing of the fiscal 23 budget. We can leave it that way for now.
I just have one quick question. I promise it won't take long. Number 6. Is that an applicant? Was that initiated by an applicant?
One portion of it is related to the village liquors
Okay.
and adding a definition. But the other 2 are cleaning up the amendment section. So
Okay.
we probably could wait another month, but as Kathy stated, we'll see what happens.
Thank you for the clarification. That's all I have.
And that one, we can definitely add a blurb to the website. And as you know, May 16th, town meeting. One agenda item is presentation and review of the fiscal year 23 town budget for consideration.
Backing up for administrative business or consent agenda, I'm hoping to propose some trail work days. Any preference?
Consent.
Okay,
Under one of those parking things, that's where we can talk about additional parking and improving parking, or should that be something else?
I was gonna, Kathy, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna present a 5-year plan
Okay,
for the parking plan, so I think it'd be appropriate to discuss all of that during that parking plan. It includes additional parking spaces.
good. Okay, just want to make sure I talked to Kathy about that today. So
Sure.
thanks.
is there a motion to accept the agenda for the?
May I add one thing?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
apologize. I know.
Over-
Depending on the status of our water and sewer. No, the water and sewer trainee position, I just drew a blank. there may be a need for a closed session after the May 2nd or May 16th meeting if we get any candidates.
Okay, for potential hiring of a candidate.
That'd be correct.
Good.
Terrific. Okay, so we've been advised and we'll expect a phone call if there's a need.
If there is a need,
Okay,
yes.
terrific. Very good. Okay. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as presented for the May 2nd, 2022 meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second for the motion?
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Ritz, seconded by Commissioner Burns. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Is there a motion to close? the
I'll make a
meeting?
motion to close the meeting at 11:12.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good night. The meeting does close at 11:12 PM.
We went on overtime